autumn, faithful mark Palm Sunday as Easter beckons. On the right, matters politics, state's big plan for Raila's AUC job bid. The government is developing a fully fledged campaign, secretariat and a budget to support Azimio leader Raila Odinga's bid for the chairmanship of the African Union Commission, AUC. Matters affecting farmers. Fake fertilizer sparks panic among farmers. That was on page 21. I was taking a look at a particular video. I don't know how clarified it has been, but then, I mean, there have been a number of videos circulating on social media of just, farmers and just people warning others and cautioning farmers of this is how, when you take a look at your fertilizer, it might be looking like, and it is quite worrying. The bits, teachers cry fall over recent promotions, and they say Kenya National Union of Teachers, that is NAT, says 15,858 teachers were left out of the recent promotions by the TSA. And at the very top scroll, at one sound that probably Fred and I do really enjoy listening to, the sound of an engine, a Mitsubishi Revo, that it would probably make.
The rally.
Oh, yes. It's a vroom. All roads lead to Naivasha this week to Safari Rally revs, or rather our Safari Rally revs up to a noisy, dusty start.
All right. Something to look forward to, I tell you. Those heading to Vasha, I've seen one of the top trends this morning on X is Twende Vasha. So ile Vasha watu zungumzia ndio hii, wiki hii, safari hii.
Oh, yes.
Na Safari Rally.
Oh, yes.
Mpoa wako akiamua kwenda Vasha weekend hii, bila wewe, iyo move on.
Oh, yes. Yes. I've seen the two words, noisy and dusty, and it reminds me of what one key political figure says, and what was actually happening over the weekend.
What about?
How things got noisy and dusty.
And messy.
Oh, and messy.
Okay, it will definitely get dusty with the rally.
Oh, yes.
So people will see dust for real.
Oh, yes. And that is, let me take a look at the back page of Daily Nation. A couple of sports that I do love. Matters rugby. Culminating the Kenya Cup Rugby, Kakamega Showground to host the season's final on the 6th of April. And fans are looking forward to a mouth-watering contest on champions Kabras Sugar, and KCB will be locking horns. This is going to be an interesting one. And Front looks for more of the same against Zimbabwe. Matters Harambee Stars. They faced a 3-1 loss against Malawi. That was the under-20 side. Oh, yes.
Oh, yes, but there was a 4-0 win for the Stars against Malawi this past weekend. Yes, congratulations to the Stars. Tuangazie gazeti la Taifa Leo. Habari kuu pale masuala ya Raila Odinga. Siku hizi ukimwona Raila Odinga kwenye ukurasa wa mbele unajua ni masuala ya AU. Au serikali yapiga jeki Raila. Mbali na kutengewa bajeti, Rais William Ruto na mkuu wa mawaziri watamsaidia Raila katika kampeni kote Afrika. Serikali yasema itaanzisha afisi rasmi ya kampeni na kutenga budget ya kumsaidia kiongozi wa Azimio Raila Odinga kuwania wenyekiti wa tume ya muungano wa Afrika AUC. Habari zaidi, walioziwa mbolea bandia wataka fidia. Wakulima wasema serikali ilifeli kuwalinda dhidi ya walaghai, hivyo wakapunjwa. Kwingineko, hofu samaki wakipungua ziwa Victoria. Upungufu umewatia kiwewe wenyeji, kwani kwao samaki ni kitega uchumi muhimu. Pale juu kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo, wakuu waliomgawa wa hela shuleni kukatwa, wasema huenda wakalazimika kuongeza karo kukidhi mahitaji. Na unajua, kwa sababu ya masuala ya fedha na ukosefu wa fedha shuleni, shule nyingi zitafunga wiki hii. Shule zilitarajiwa kufunga wiki ya kwanza ya Aprili, tarehe 5, lakini shule nyingi zinasema zitafunga kabla hata ya sherehe za
Pasaka. sababu hawana hela za...
It's going to be a very eventful week. The rally is coming.
Schools closing.
Schools are closing. Davido will be around. And, of course, Easter celebrations. So this is going to be a very, very busy week. And the rains are here with us. Wow, what kind of chaos. Maswala ya spoti yanatimisha zile habari zilizopewa kipaumbele kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo. Timu za Ufaransa, Uingereza za lala nyumbani kirafiki. Uingereza walisakamwa na majabali Brazil, kisha Ujerumani wakakosea Ufaransa heshima kwao. Habari yenyewe kwenye ukurasa wa 20 kwenye gazeti hili la Taifa Leo.
Right, from Taifa Leo, let's take a look at People Daily. And they say shattered dreams. So paid families and university community come face to face with the Realtor road accident that cut short the future of young students. And they've pictured them there, the 11 Kenyatta University students. And according to Rachel Ruto, First Lady, they were shining examples to their peers of the pride and joy of their families and communities. Some were the only hope of their families. May they rest in peace. Another sad news in Russia. Flags fly half-mast as Russia mourns. And authorities say 11 people, including 4 gunmen, detained in connection with the attack that claimed 133 people. On the top strip, 2 more highlights there. Schools raise the alarm of a return of COVID-19. That is on page 2. And matters crime, 3 officers, popular DJ held after inspector's death. And picture there, the popular DJ Joe Mfalme. And that is the People Daily for you. We'll be getting into more details on People Daily on the cartoon a little bit later, but to Business Daily.
On the Business Daily, it speaks about state employee pay crosses 70,000 shilling mark on average. A civil servant on average now earns more than a new bank staff. Wow, interesting. SRC pushing to cap wage bill at 35% of revenue. They say the average take home for a government employee in Kenya crossed the 70,000 shilling mark last year, overtaking the entry-level salary in the banking industry and compounding the public wage bill crisis at a time the majority of workers are dealing with pay slips erosion from salary stagnation and rising inflation. This must be good news for government employees. The other story given prominence on the front page of the Business Daily is this dispute. The ex-Scan Group CEO Bharat Thakur files a 4.3 billion shilling suit over ouster. This is a former Scan Group CEO Bharat Thakur, who has sued the firm's UK-based parent WPP PLC, its subsidiary WPP Scan Group, and all its directors in a Nairobi court for alleged loss and reputational, emotional, and mental damage linked to the events that followed his suspension from the company he founded, and is claiming 4.3 billion shillings. Wow. Siku moja. On the ticker, KQ defense extension of shares trade freeze. Elsewhere, Kenya to spend 11 billion shillings on inaugural nuclear reactor. Elsewhere, why judge declined to strike out suit on village market. And finally, James Finlay and 3 billion shillings in Kenya exit. This is a UK multinational, James Finlay, received $23.6 million last year's sale of its key businesses to Sri Lanka's LOLC Holdings. New disclosures show. That's the Business Daily this morning. I think we'll finish up with the Star newspaper.
Oh yes, on the Star, audit bears 6 state of county hospitals, and this is according to a report by the Auditor General Nancy Kathungu. And just to quote her, she says most of the services that should have been provided in the facilities were unavailable, and the infrastructure, both physical and equipment, was inadequate for the delivery of quality health services. Just taking a look at what and how different top county hospitals are looking like. Saying at least 14 facilities have an accounted revenue amounting to 327 million shillings. Highest is Igegania Hospital. Was on pages 4 and 5. On the bottom, the vigil in Kenyatta University that happened yesterday. attended by First Lady Mama Rachel Ruto and Education Cabinet Secretary Ezekiel Machogu, the memorial service for the 11 Kenyatta University students. On the bottom, Queer organization wins recognition for defending LGBTQ. Some interesting news there. Away from that, Trans Nzoia man stoned to death over unpaid debt. And to a conversation we'll be having today, TB infection. Why so many Kenyans likely to die of the disease? And in matters nutrition, farmer reaping big with organic herbs, spices in Murang'a. And finally, before I take a look at the cartoon on this paper that is on page 3, they say transformation agenda on the top. We will not be derailed, Ruto tells detractors. Right, let me take a look at the cartoon on the Star, which is on page 3. Yes, page 3. And they have quite a whole chaos there, whatever is happening. This is the Star and a yellow bus, written road carnage. And there's a gentleman there trying to probably stop this bus with a signage that says stop or else. But it seems as if all these vehicles around him are not stopping. And they're all actually, and the whole genezas around him. Yes, the whole conversation of the knee-jerk reactions when it comes to road carnages in the country.
Also the status or the safety of the vehicles we use for school transport or public transport as well. I think it is an indictment because they should have enhanced safety measures, either when you're transporting members of the public or schools or school-going children.
Yeah.
But it would appear that most of those buses are just mabati.
On to which paper do you have there?
I have open the cartoons on the Standard and the Daily Nation. On the Standard, page 12, it simply talks about Ingwe at 60. That's the FC Leopards. This team has been in existence for 60 years now. And yes, it is my favorite local team. So
interesting.
Yes,
it's your favorite.
It's a year of celebration. Yes.
But it's no celebration. The leopard is sleeping on.
Don't worry.
The leopard. You guys are number 8.
If you look at the team you currently support at the EPL, it's really struggling.
No, we are talking about Kenyan matters here. You guys
my support goes beyond their current state, even in football. Whatever they're going through right now, we will recover. If we've been here for 60 years, we'll be here for 60 more. Yeah, we can guarantee you that. But I think my most interesting cartoon this morning is on page 13 of the Daily Nation. It talks about 1,000 ways to die in Kenya. And this is a spin wheel, which has a fake fertilizer, fake seeds, fake drinks, fake promises, fake certificates. And yeah, you have your pick. As a Kenyan, you have your pick. There are 1,000 ways to die as a Kenyan. You can die from fake fertilizer, fake alcohol, fake certificates, fake seeds, or the popular one, fake promises as well.
Choose your pick.
I think just being Kenyan, let me not go there. Anyway, those are the cartoons this morning in the dailies. We'll be looking at some of these discussions with my panel. Today, remember, being a final Monday, one. It is Power Monday.
A final one, which I'm pretty sure you'll also be taking a look at the panel. A house that represents Kenya that is burning in the eyes that are peeping outside, and a gentleman walking out says, hold on, I'll deal with the fire later. And he is thinking with AU. Thinking
about the AU.
There's a fire extinguisher just outside him that says anti-government crusades. And this is the extinguisher that was being used last year at a time like this.
This is a discussion we were having last week.
Oh, yes.
Whether or not there's anyone willing to deal with the issues that Kenya is currently facing. Raila is currently preoccupied with his beat, and rightly so. The expectation that Raila will always be there to handle things for Kenyans probably is a bit unjustified and unfair even to him. Allow the man to focus on a few things, at least for now. So yes, those are the headlines this morning, and we'll be looking at them with my panelists today. Yes, being Power Monday, Kipruto Rapkirwa, former Agriculture Cabinet Minister, will be in studio. Also, Samuel Pogisio, former ICT Minister, will be in studio as well. Philip Kisia, Leadership and Governance Expert and former Town Clerk Nakuru. Nairobi will be in studio, I beg your pardon. And Honorable Dr. Mombingaru, former Iala Member of Parliament, will also be joining us. Do stand by for that. We always have very interesting conversation when this team is in studio. That will be on the State of the Nation.
Oh, yes.
After that?
After that, we take a look at matters tuberculosis infections of around 8 a.m. With Dr. Ireri Victor, taking a look at why. Actually, the government says about 40%, there are about 40% of cases in Kenya. But then, some of these cases, and these 40% of cases are undetected, hence they're not treated. We'll be getting to understand why that is the case. That conversation coming up, and then at the very tail end, Laila Nabwira from the St. John Ambulance, who's a first aid trainer, will be joining us just to understand the tips that you need to know matters incident management. In case you are a victim of an accident or you're a witness, instead of just coming there and start recording, what do you need to know? What do you need to do? That coming your way later on. Remember, you can always be part of this conversation on our socials at TV47KE on Facebook, at TV47 News on X. My name is Ringita _
at Fred Indimuli on X.
Mchuzi, nadhani mwenyewe hali halisi umeiona. Tulivyotoka kwenye kikao, yule mwanamke ni mgumu, hataki kuelewa.
Kwani ukija huku shamba unakujaga kulinda nini?
Kwa ajili ya nguruwe wanaokula miogo.
Nataka nikuoneshe nguruwe wanaokula miogo yako ni wa aina gani.
Na safari hii katika Mfahamu Kiongozi tutakuletea viongozi aina mbalimbali.
Nikuwe na Nisani kama 10 na pia nikuwe menua minibus. Minibus niko niwa.
Kushinda unaangalia simu ya mzee, soma Biblia ama ingia kwa washroom ujisugue mpaka nimetoa hivi.
I don't know whether any of my children would want to get into the political field. Sijajua bado.
Kila Alhamisi saa 1:30 kuendelea.
right, welcome back and a very good morning to you. So the Council of Governors is appealing to doctors to reconsider their strike, citing the effects have been devastating this far for ailing Kenyans, even resulting in deaths. The Council of Governors Health Committee, Governor Muthomi Njuki, said the now 13-day strike is hurting Kenyans, and thus the doctors should come to the table for discussions, which he is hopeful will yield a fruit soon. Consequently, the governor notes that the government is willing to address some of the issues doctors are demanding immediately, whilst others will be implemented as funds are found. The Health Committee chairperson has also lauded doctors in county hospitals for not joining the strike, saying county governments have been extremely attentive to the requests of doctors and implementing their requests.
I appeal as the chair of Health Council of Governors. We are ready as a government to cooperate, but it is not possible to do it in one day. We must have a workable solution where we must trust each other. Tukisema internship tutafanya within the month of June, ama ifanywe mwezi wa August, kwanza kulipa ndio tupitishe budget. The union should understand. Tukisema universal health coverage hatuwezi waandika na siku moja mpaka ikuwe gradual. Daktari mpaka waelewe, because at the end of the day tukienda mkomo mpaka patients wetu waishe, we are being retrogressive with our health sector, which we have done so much. Kwa hivyo nauliza union, hata kama tunaongea tunagoma. Mkomo is a way of making a statement. By now we have heard you, not only hearing you, we have felt you. We know you are crucial, we know your issues are not being met, and there is no way we can work retrogressively or any other way. We must work to ensure that your end of the bargain is met. Lakini na nyinyi rudini kazini ili watu wetu waache kukufa kwa sababu ya kukosa matibabu ya udaktari.
Let me take you to Kenyatta University now, where the Kenyatta University held its memorial service, a tribute to the 11 fallen comrades who passed on in a road accident at Mangu area in Voi. Led by Vice Chancellor Professor Paul Wainaina, the university has appealed for financial aid from well-wishers to aid in supporting the victims of the tragedy. Sheila Chilangat reports.
A somber mood engulfed the Kenyatta University graduation square. The moment too heavy for many here to bear, each person feeling the weight of the tragedy as the families shared tributes of their loved ones.
To think we'll never talk with you again, that we'll not have our day-to-day conversations is too much. What are we to do now? We're completely shattered. You've left away way too soon. You still have so much more to do.
I prayed so hard that it was only an awful prank. I remember going down the highway, dazed and confused, sick to my stomach with the thoughts of you.
And for those who survived, saying goodbye to their colleagues was a bitter pill to swallow.
Just Monday. It feels like yesterday, but also a lifetime ago. Our friends, vibrant with life, and now this silence. We are traumatized. That's the truth, and it is okay to say it aloud.
47 comrades are still recuperating in hospitals. The university says they require more assistance for them.
We continue to urge well-wishers to come forward and assist the university to cover the huge bills accruing from the critical and specialized care that hospitalized students are receiving.
President William Ruto donated 2 million Kenyan shillings in support of the families preparing to rest their kin.
Let us honor their memory by striving to create a safer, more compassionate world. To all motorists, my plea is that we exercise caution at all times. Let us be more vigilant and courteous on our roads, ensuring our safety and that of other road users.
Sheila Chelangat for TV 47.
At least 18 schools have been closed indefinitely in a span of 3 months in Baringo North following banditry attacks that have marred the region now. The joint multi-agency rapid assessment have reported the attacks have claimed the lives of 16 people and displaced more than 2,000 families who now require humanitarian support in internally displaced camps. Rift Valley Regional Commissioner Abdi Hassan stated that the multi-agency team is assessing the affected areas to determine the number of schools impacted and the displaced persons as well as the displaced persons. The banditry attacks in 6 counties of the North Rift have started conversation on the government's inability to weed out bandits from their hideouts.
Kama shule yangu Ngaratuko walitupiga mchana saa 6 mpaka watu wa askari wa RDU wakaturescue na walitupeleka mbio kwa magari mchana na tukangoa hata marago ila haijaiva kwa moto tukapeleka tukafunga madarasa na tukaenda tukaambiwa tuende kwa hapa kwa sababu tutasingirwa na tutamalizwa. Sasa tukahama.
This century should not be in this time, and we have been asking the government and we continue asking them to make sure that one, they protect life and properties, and more so they protect our children in schools, and make sure that we send the police and the special units to protect our schools. So that
sisi tumejitolea kuhakikisha ya kwamba tuandikishe historia ya kwamba hawa magaidi tuwasake, tuwafinye, tuwararue, tuwazoroteshe mpaka watokomee.
And still in matters in security, tensions have gripped the Lamu West constituency after terrorists attacked the area, leaving 2 dead and 1 seriously injured. This suspected Al-Shabaab terrorists attacked the area last night. The reporter Natasha Werimo informs us.
2 Rapid Deployment Unit officers have been killed and 1 injured during a suspected Al-Shabaab terrorist attack in Lamu West constituency. According to locals, the incident took place around 8 p.m. and was characterized by fierce gunfire between the criminals and the officers.
Na katika hiyo hali imeweka wananchi na tension, hata wengine sahi wameanza kubeba mizigo wakienda, wengine hata wanashidwa sasa hapa watarara kihivi.
2 homes and other properties were reportedly set on fire by the perpetrators during the attack. A resident identified as Simila Voya narrates her story against the terrorists.
Wakaniambia sasa kama uko na hizi mbuzi kama zinaenda nini iko hapa? Kamwambia si hakuna yenye imeungulia hapa hiyo. Na mwingine akaenda kwa bedroom akabeba suitcase yangu iko na nguo zenye navanga nikienda safari.
The Lamu County Security Department has called on the communities affected by the attack to remain vigilant, revealing that investigations into the incident have commenced. They also urged leaders to work together to bring stability and improve security in the constituency.
Nataka nitoe wito kwa viongozi wote wa gatuzi hili la Lamu, viongozi wote wa serikali kwamba tushikane bega kwa bega kuhakikisha kwamba adui huyu hajapata nafasi hata siku moja, kwa sababu hili ni jambo ambalo tukilichunguza kiundani huenda kawa linahusiana na mzozo wa ardhi, lakini sitaki niliweke hilo kwamba ni jambo la kipaumbele.
For TV 47, I am Natasha Werimo.
The proposed new reforms for security guards is yet to be implemented to date. The Kenya National Private Security Workers Union, KNPSWU, Secretary General Isaac Andaba has called on all security guards to avail themselves on the 30th of this month at Uhuru Gardens to rally behind the implementations of minimum wage bill of 30,000 cash shillings per month. Speaking in Nairobi on Saturday, Isaac Andabwa said the government and the regulator have come to an agreement to implement the proposed minimum wage bill of 30,000 shillings. He also noted that the guards will be given guard force numbers on the same day. The guards who were present also joined hands with the union and voted to avail themselves on the 30th of this month at Uhuru Park to ensure that their welfare is taken care of.
Slavery, exploitation, kunyanyasa, kuibia watu overtime,
kuipia watu allowance, environment ya kazi, kuzikwa kama kakas ya ng'ombe, inaisha tarehe 30. Nataka niseme hivi, hii safari ya reform katika private security, watu wengi wameparticipate ndani. Kuna employers ambao wamesupport union by deduction of union dues. Mungu abariki hao employers. Kuna maaskari ambao walijitokeza angalau wana minimum wage, lakini wanaleta check off pesa kidogo kusaidia union ili kudrive mambo ya reform katika private security. Despite being paid peanuts, you supported the union and reform agenda. Mungu awabariki sana.
Right, and that is all the updates that we have for you. Matters State of the Nation coming up later on in the panel. Kipchora Kiro, former Agricultural Cabinet Minister, Samuel Pogisio, former Majority Leader of the Kenya Senate, and as well as former ICT Minister, and Philip Kisia, Leadership and Governance Expert, as well as Honorable Dr. Mumbi Ngario, a Member of Parliament, former Member of Parliament. And good morning, gentlemen. Salama. I hope the rains have been fantastic with you.
Yes.
Friday in the Body will be joining you in a few. See you at around 8 a.m.
Na safari hii katika Mfahamu Kiongozi tutakuletea viongozi aina mbalimbali.
Nikuwe na nisani kama 10 na pia nikuwe menua minibus. Minibus nikoniwa.
Kushinda unaangalia simu ya mzee, soma Biblia ama ingia kwa washroom ujisugue mpaka nimetoa hivi.
I don't know whether any of my children would want to get into the political field. Sijajua bado.
Kila Alhamisi saa 1:30 kuendelea.
Join us on a journey through the concrete jungles and rising skylines, where every beam, every nail tells a story of progress and vision.
In every aspect of life, you know, you have to look at several dynamics.
From groundbreaking.
Nowadays with the tech, you can check on different websites or you check online and you can see some inspiration. So at least that one would be a direction already. I'll know like what kind of style you're going for.
To finishing touches, witness the dedication of the hard-working teams who bring these ambitious dreams to reality. The Realtor, Tuesdays at 6:30 p.m.
Na safari hii katika Mfahamu Kiongozi,
My children would want to get into the political field. Sijajua bado.
kila Alhamisi saa 1:30 kuendelea.
Join us on a journey through the concrete jungles and rising skylines, where every beam, every nail tells a story of progress and vision.
In every aspect of life, you have to look at several dynamics.
From groundbreaking.
Nowadays with the tech, you can check on different websites or you check online and you can see some inspiration. So at least that one would be a direction already. I'll know like what kind of style you're going for.
To finishing touches. Witness the dedication.
All right, welcome back. You're watching Morning Cafe on TV47. This being Monday, the 25th of March, 2024. It's time for us to take a look at the state of the nation. My name is Fred Indemuli. Karibuni sana. Today being Monday, we have our power panel comprising Honorable Dr. Mombing Garu, former member of the East Africa Legislative Assembly. Karibu sana.
Asante.
We do have Kipruto Rapkirwa, former Agriculture Minister. Karibu sana.
Asante.
Philip Kisia, former Town Clerk, Nairobi. It's a pleasure to have you in studio.
Thank you.
And last but definitely not least, Samuel Pogisio, former ICT Cabinet Minister. Karibuni sana. It's good to see you all bright this morning, despite the rains all over the country. It is a blessing to many, but when it happens in Nairobi, it causes a bit of an inconvenience. But probably even before we delve into the dailies and our discussion this morning, I just want to take a look at how your weekend has been. Because interesting things are happening, and they start with you, Dr. Ngaru. In Mount Kenya region, for example, I can see one of the dailies talking about the Deputy President actually giving in to the farmers and saying they'll have to relook at some of the provisions of the Finance Act 2023 because of the tax on fresh farm produce. How has your weekend been? That's how I want us to start today.
Thank you, Fred. Good morning.
Good morning.
My weekend was fine. It's not good for Kenyans to wake up. Students have died in a road accident. Parents are mourning. Attacks by bandits. All those things that hit us in the media are not very encouraging. But at a personal level, it was Palm Sunday. And we are reminded that there is still hope for ourselves, for this country, and for anything that we aspire. There is still time. So it was a good weekend, and then we had the rains. About the farming and farmers in central Kenya. I'm more Nairobi than central Kenya. Sad that, but I did see a member of parliament say, you can't ask us why we passed it. Pastors and the Bible. Some things like those ones. They are disheartening because that tells you from a distance the kind of leaders we have.
Wow. Bonakirwa, from your end, Trans Nzoia has been in the headlines over the weekend for very different reasons. Is everything okay in Trans Nzoia?
It's okay. It is just politics beginning, and the things will stabilize in the long run. But allow me, Fred, to pass my condolences to the 11 students, to the parents, relatives, and friends of the 11 students of Kenyatta University who passed on, and also wish quick recovery. I hear more than 40 are now recuperating. Some of them I know because I know their parents, and it is indeed a very sad moment for a country to be losing such young people. And of course, we don't need to lose anybody, but it is unfortunate that it happens. We would expect school drivers, school bus drivers, to be in a better form in terms of care, in terms of being cautious on the roads, despite the fact that anyway accidents at times are unavoidable. But we just pray for this country so that we save many more lives. Okay. And of course, the other issue is the banditry in Lamu West. It is worrying in the sense that this is part of Kenya, and being part of Kenya, we must be able to manage the diversity of this country in a way that Kenyans are not put to a disadvantage just because they came from another part of Kenya, of the country. But finally, the weekend was good. Yes, the rains are coming in, but we are worried as farmers about fake fertilizer. We know fake fertilizer is not even the fact that you are conned to buy stones instead of fertilizer, but what it means in terms of food security. Because we may end up spending as a country a lot more money importing food while we are the ones responsible for the destruction of the farming sector.
Okay.
Yeah.
Back to that issue of what's happening in Trans Nzoia, very interesting videos, scenes that we witnessed probably in the 90s, especially with that Ford Kenya supremacy battles between the late Vice President Kijana Amalo and Raila Odinga back in the day, yes. People hiding under tables. That is what we saw in Trans Nzoia this past weekend.
It's happening. There is a lot of tension. You see, I come from the generation that precedes my governor, Natembea. And so is Wetangula from that generation. So is Fort Kenya. Fort Kenya is seen to be struggling to survive. DAP is trying to come to town. And that tension is likely to take place. What we just beseech the leaders is that let sensibility prevail. Because at the end of the day, we are all residents of Trans Nzoia. And we do not have to destroy desks, we don't have to kill people for us to have leadership position. Leadership just evolves. And when the people say it is not Kirwa, we must give in and say, okay, life will continue even after me.
I think the more interesting concern, and allow me to dwell on this a little bit more, is the fact that it appears supremacy wars in Western region have found a base or a war front in Trans Nzoia. This war is not happening in Kakamega or in Vihiga. It's happening in Trans Nzoia.
Trans Nzoia, you know, is the interface between the former Western Province and Rift Valley. And of course, the dominant community there happens to be the community that has always supported Fort Kenya. So it has to happen because that is whatever Trans Nzoia will do, the rest of Western is likely to follow in that particular direction. We've been providing the leadership, whether it's the late Masinde Muliro.
And the food as well.
And the food.
Interesting. Let's come back to the city, Wanakisia. Very interesting debate happening from yesterday on urban development in Nairobi, with the declaration that now the restriction on high-rise buildings will be removed, and we can now build apartments as high up as 75 floors. That's a very interesting assertion coming from the governor himself.
No, Fred, first of all, let me join my colleagues in passing condolences to the families that have lost their dear ones. As my brother Kirwa said, you know, death is something that you cannot avoid. But when you lose young people, it's really hard-hitting to the nation and to the families. So my condolences. Now, Fred, I have also been following that debate very keenly. And I can say that, most of the times I feel very constrained commenting on matters to do with Nairobi County for two reasons. Number one is that the governor is like my son, for all practical reasons in terms of age, and the mother happens to come from Western Kenya. So other than, cracking a whip, I would rather be the one advising him. But he has never come for advice. So his pronouncements over the weekend were really disturbing. Because what comes before the other? Is it the infrastructure or the building? I'm talking about infrastructure, water, power, sewer line, roads, and public space. Which one comes before the other? They seem to suggest that the high-rise building, the skyscrapers, 75 floors and above, come before the infrastructure. I think the person who has advised the governor needs to be sacked If he calls me this morning to ask for advice, I'd say the first thing you need to do is to sack the officer who has misled you. That you can make such a pronouncement in public, because then you look very stupid. Okay, for lack of a better word. Because you also don't even need advice. You know, there are things that come before the other.
Are we saying that if at all the infrastructure was in place, then high-rise residential building?
I'm saying, okay, even if you wanted to build, okay, you must have the infrastructure. You cannot start building without infrastructure, because if you look at the services that we have in Nairobi, they are overstretched already, and we have a governor who is already proposing that we put more pressure on the infrastructure we have. Places like Kilimani, Keleleshwa were made for single dwelling. Now we have, high-rise buildings, okay? And the infrastructure cannot match. So there's a mismatch. But even forget about the mismatch that we have in the infrastructure vis-a-vis the development. You know, a city develops through a plan. And I've heard my president talk about a plan. Now, this is where you need a plan. The city had a plan that expired. And when my administration took over, one of the first key things out of the 5 areas of delivery that I agreed with my former boss was ensuring that in 36 months, before I leave, I will have put a master plan for Nairobi. That one we did with the assistance of JICA. We left a master plan that runs from 2014 to 2039. Okay? And it was participatory. When Japanese fund anything, and it was a grant, I must say, 400 million shillings, when Japanese come in and fund anything, because it's public money, the people concerned must participate. So it was fully participatory. Now, we delivered, we left, and Kidero came in, found that plan. The only thing that Kidero did was to launch it publicly. But what should have followed was what we call spatial plans. These are area-specific plans, which are more detailed. But they derive from the master plan, okay? So now we have a plan that is not being implemented. We have a plan that nobody is looking at. We have a plan that has been ignored. And we have a governor that isn't proposing that we can start building skyscrapers without taking into account that you need certain services before you think of building skyscrapers. The final thing on this particular matter, Fred, you know, when you look at the Planning Act, there is nowhere the governor is given room to arbitrarily make decisions. You take, if there's any thing to be approved, a building to be approved, there are other agencies that approve that development before even it comes to the county as a final approval. There's NEMA, there's National Construction Authority, and so on and so forth. Okay? Then it comes to the county planning department, who review the project and approve it in line with the zoning policy. Because if you look at the master plan that the people of Nairobi put together, it has zoning policies. So you can't just wake up one morning and decide you're going to have a 12-story building here. I mean, it is zoned. And when planners decided that there have to be zones, it was for a reason. So you can't have areas of single dwelling units with skyscrapers. It does not even happen in Timbuktu. It does not even happen in South Sudan. It does not even happen where people are so backward. So I am shocked that my governor, my good friend, the young man who is just 37, 38, 39, can even dream of building, he can even dream or imagine that he can allow this to happen. The powers to approve lay squarely with the planning department. I even saw my president in that meeting, and he said the governor, the president, the national government will support this initiative. I must remind the president that if you look at the act, there is nowhere in the act, there is nowhere in the approval process where he comes in or where the national government comes in. There is nowhere. And therefore, this is a very, very, very bad dream. If this is what they call a vision, it's backward, it must be stopped, and the people of Nairobi must say no, and a resounding no, to both Governor Johnson, Arthur Sakaja, and my good friend, the President of the Republic of Kenya, William Samoei Ruto. It's a no, no, no.
Okay. Wow, interesting debate. And Bwana Pogisio, even as you comment on the weekend, there's Bwana Kirwa mentioned this issue about fertilizer, and I know it is key, especially from the region you come from, that fake fertilizer will really affect the main activity that happens in that area. But back to the issue and the conversation we've been having with you about the trust deficit. When distribution of fertilizer was one of the main promises of this administration, one of the things they embarked on from the word go, and now we see a sort of failure to deliver on that promise. What does that do to the already struggling trust issues that the public has with this government?
Well, Fred, first of all, thank you for the opportunity, and I missed you guys on Monday. And I want to take this first opportunity to pass my condolences to the University of the Kenyatta University, the entire university, parents and friends of those who lost loved ones, and quick recovery of those in hospital. It's a very big blow. The weekend was very good. It's, as members here have said, Easter weekend started. It's in a convergence of Christian faith, Islamic faith also went to Ramadan. So it must have been a very prayerful weekend that gave us rain last night. I must say it's going to be very difficult for those of us who are coming from Trans Nzoia, near Trans Nzoia. I mean, West Pokot, as you know, is actually the next county to Trans Nzoia, and West Pokot shares almost the same Kapenguria area. It's Arabo area that's like Trans Nzoia. So people will suffer quite a bit if they don't get the right fertilizer. And I think one of the things that we should pride ourselves in is that Kenyans actually can take care of themselves if the government can just support them properly. Kenyans can grow and raise crops, raise food, cash crops, but we just must support them with the proper things. I was very concerned that KEBS, which is a government arm, can actually confirm that the fertilizer is fake and pronounces that as such. But through the weekend, nobody in the government has actually come to take responsibility or even apportion the blame to anybody. I mean, it's very important that we know that we can make mistakes. And let's come down to that, say, I'm sorry, apologize to people. Because if you buy, and I saw a place where if you bought the fertilizer, and half of it is pebbles, something, some kind of roundish stones. And if that really be the case, you're buying absolutely nothing. You're simply making your soil even worse. Mm-hmm. So I do hope that somebody will take responsibility. First of all, because if it is a donation, given to us by somebody, we should actually go back to that person and say, you better give us half of the number, but of pure fertilizer, than trying to give us hundreds of bags and half of it is stones. But secondly, if we are buying it and spending public funds, I mean, there's a time to take responsibility. The people are serious on farming. That's their livelihood. And they support the economy of this country. In fact, what we are getting, agriculture is the backbone of the economy of Kenya. We need to have these people supported. So yeah, I agree with you. But generally, I think we need to have a situation, to discuss a situation where leaders can be vulnerable, can actually say we made a mistake here, And that, I know that's not going to be easy. I heard the member for Kiharu, Ndidi Nyoro, saying that, telling the taxman, you can't tax people anymore without public participation. I mean, you know that's the law. It has been the law for a long time. And it's not a matter of begging the taxman. The taxman should know the law. So I'm just saying, basically, the same government needs to realize that they're under scrutiny. And these days, Kenyans actually scrutinize quite a bit. And they should then get their act together, not individually releasing statements that confuse people about public participation. The same issue that my friend here, Tisha, was talking about Nairobi. Public participation is very important. I mean, it's amazing that that kind of pronouncement could be made and just declared like that without policy. So I think we're heading in a direction where leaders tend to feel entitled and not caring about who else has an opinion. And I think we need to move away from that.
Okay. Yeah. Now, the whole of last week we were discussing whether or not President William Ruto was having it easy, was having everything go his way. And we examined that for the better part of last week. This week I want us to examine whether or not it is true. Is that hypothesis true? Is President William Ruto getting it easy? Or are we seeing signs of a serious pushback on some of his policies? I'm talking about issues like his deputy admitting that they may need to review some of the things they put in the finance bill. Fine, maybe time may not allow before because the next finance bill is being processed as we speak. Probably attention will be given to that. But are we seeing obvious signs of Kenyans now in different ways beginning to push back on government decisions? We're seeing even members of parliament from the Kenya Kwanza side now coming out and saying, well, we did not treat that bill. What exactly does that do to the president? Of course, compounded by also the legal hurdles that some of his decisions have encountered. So the question is he really getting everything his way?
I don't think so. Fortunately, we have two former cabinet ministers here. And wherever I served, I also served at some executive level where decisions made at cabinet level were things that were scrutinized and agreed upon. And my two colleagues here can bear me witness that you wouldn't just payuka anything from the cabinet without really having thought about what happened in the boardroom. So what we are seeing now is, does the cabinet actually sit and agree that this is the way forward? We have a parliament also that speaks from different levels. So the public probably has seen the disconnect. And therefore, they've written off the cabinet, they've written off parliament, and this is why there is the pushback, what you are calling the pushback. And the president is not going to have it easy. Probably he needs to reorganize his mind and his way of doing things. I believe if his advisors listen not only to themselves, because there are people who just listen to themselves. And when they listen to themselves, they will not take criticism like the clerk has expounded. When some of them see Philip Kisia give something that is in black and white, done, funded for, that you only need to lift it and work on it. the first thing they do is dismiss Philip Kisia, sour grapes. Forget about those waheshimiwas and cabinet ministers. You know, they didn't make it. Who elected them to speak for the public and that kind of thing? So we have a problem. We have that disconnect. And Kenyans have noticed, even from where I come from, that, okay, we made a mistake. They are not coming out, probably because they feel they're responsible of the mistake. They are too angry to come out.
These are the Kenyans?
Yeah, they're too angry to come out and say, you know, how do I come out of this? I am responsible. The guilt also holds them back. But we also must remember that when they get out of that freezing situation, they will go, and they will go for the leaders that they have. And it's coming very soon. Okay. And this is why there is hope for this country. We need to keep the pressure on, even if it's not pronounced. You can see some things that are just fizzling out. It was a big agenda, but it's now not on the front line. It's a wait and see attitude.
So it's not all rosy for the president?
It isn't. And this is why I keep on saying, I wish his advisors, if he has got any, can go back to the drawing board and say, this is what we have picked from all over. Okay. From all over. It's like the country is in a mourning period. Problems all over. In fact, sometimes I don't even read the newspapers because you are going to get disappointed. But Kenyans know what they want for this country, and they are not going to allow anybody to take them for a ride.
Bonakiro, the president had a proper strategy. He knew he needed a majority in parliament. He got it. He knew he needed the opposition in a certain way. He appears to be getting it right. But now we're seeing as if that is not enough. That despite him getting the majority in parliament, now the same MPs are saying there was an issue here and there. Are we saying that the structures he built for himself that would ensure that he gets it easy could be beginning to have some cracks?
You know, Mheshimiwa has put it very well. She said she's not sure whether cabinet does work, because any paper you take to the cabinet, apart from the minister presenting or prosecuting the paper, other colleagues will give their input. So that at the end of the day, whatever you thought was good can be improved in terms of perfection. In that way, you learn from your colleagues. And cabinet becomes clearinghouse so that any minister making pronouncement is in line with all other systems of government, including issues of funding that particular project. But the president, the way I've analyzed him, the way I've understood him, is a very good campaigner because he can give you hope even where there is no hope. And therefore he campaigned and he made so many people believe the story. But it did not think deeply about the systems, the processes, and the measures that must be overcome. Perhaps he's in a hurry to succeed, but the challenge is he does not allow systems to foment and form in a situation that some things require a bit of time. Even for those who make the local brew called busa, you don't put yeast and the unga together and you expect in the evening you will be drinking beer or alcohol. You must allow the full process to take shape. And in government, anything that has not been thought out very well is likely to fail. So it means from the manifesto, the president never translated his manifesto into a policy document that will inform government decision and the processes to be used and the structures to be respected. That's why you have so many cases in court. That's why you have so many issues arising. Remember, we have had almost 7 things fake, from the sugar, from oil, from fertilizer, fuel itself, the so-called G2G, which I prefer calling it not government to government, gangster to gangster, seed that you saw in Nakuru. There is also the issue of ghost workers, because this government has not done workers audit. So what I'm seeing is that the president knew how to win, or a means of trying to win the hearts of people. But I don't think he was prepared to govern or to run this country. That is still worrying me. And as Mheshimiwa said, he needs to reflect deeply and allow systems to work. This is one-man show, and therefore even those cabinet meetings, I don't know whether they discuss or papers are taken. Remember the other paper last week that the Attorney General is not aware that certain changes are going to be taken to Parliament, and yet is a member of the cabinet and is the chief legal advisor to the executive of the day.
Okay. Bonakisa, going by the president's statements, recent statements, it would appear that he's feeling the heat to some extent. At an event on, last Thursday, when they were launching the medium-term plan towards achieving Vision 2030, he talked about political detractors, meaning he feels that there are people or a group of people who are working actively against his policies. Yesterday, while attending church in Nairobi, he talked about the fact that he does not care about the names people call him. Anyone who says, I do not care if you call me this, meaning he feels it. To some extent, he has some feeling towards the names he's branded. That alone tells us that he's not sitting pretty.
Fred, you put it very, very well. Because if something is not affecting you, why do you talk about it in the first place? Okay? Fred, this is a man who is facing headwinds. This is a man who is facing headwinds, not because he cannot avoid them, but because of his own character. He's a man who listens to himself. He's not a team player. He's a one-man show, like my brother Kirwa said. And that's a very, very dangerous place to be in. You see, when you I don't believe up to now that there's somebody called a leader. And that is what he's suffering from. What Professor Martin Linsky calls the big L syndrome. Okay? You think you are Bwana Mukubwa, so it is all written on your forehead. You can't listen to anybody, you are always right, and so on and so forth. But when you are somebody who exercises leadership, you are a human being who is exercising leadership, you always realize, you sit down and you at least appreciate the fact that everybody around you has something to contribute towards achieving your goal, okay? So he's a man who is suffering from that syndrome, and he's a man who needs help, not today, but yesterday. Now, having said that, the headwinds that the president is facing include legal battles, and he cannot run away from that because people are within their constitutional right to seek redress in courts if they feel that some of the policies are hurting people. So he can't say that people are working against me and so on and so forth. The people you are providing leadership are saying that there's something wrong. So when you fail to listen to them, the only avenue they have is what? The courts and the streets. Then, as my colleagues have said, when you see even the second command, you know, facing a lot of heat within his own area of command, the former central province, he's facing a lot of heat, and he's retracting. It means there's something that this government has not got right. When you see members of parliament and senators and what have you now saying, you know, this document was forced into us and we didn't read it, there's something wrong. Okay? Now, it is necessary, and I talk from a perspective of strategic management, because that's where I belong. A plan is good, but a plan is good so long as you have the necessary resources to implement the plan, okay? Money, manpower, time, or minutes, machinery, and so on and so forth. You need to have them. So you can't develop when you're developing a plan, you must match the plan to the resources. Ask yourself, this is what I intend to do. Do the minutes allow me to deliver what I am promising within a certain time? If not, you must readjust. Because in a day, you only have 24 hours. You cannot make it 25. It doesn't matter how efficient you are. It doesn't matter whether you are who. You can't go beyond 24 hours. So if it is something that requires 25 hours to implement, you must give it 2 days. You can't give it 1 day. So I see a president who is struggling so hard to achieve what needs to be achieved in 2 days, in 1 day. It is not possible. It is practically not possible. The other thing that I've seen, and which he probably needs to correct, people like my president, God rest his soul in eternal peace, Emilio Mwai Kibaki, emeritus, he surrounded himself with a beautiful team. People who had knowledge, people who were properly educated, people who had practical experience, people who had proved themselves. And he assigned people responsibilities in accordance to their capabilities. He never assigned people responsibilities just because you are a friend. When he put Kirwa in agriculture, he knew this man can deliver. When he put Pogisho in ICT, he knew Pogisho can deliver. Okay? When he put his friends, he put them where he knew the friends can deliver. He didn't just put you there so that you can be a stooge. Now, the other thing that probably my president and friend can learn from the previous administration, and particularly the Grand Coalition, is having subcommittees of cabinet. Okay? Because those are the people who have time to interrogate a program or a policy that is being forwarded to cabinet. They have time. They are specialists. They sit down with technocrats. They ask questions, hard questions. So they have all that time to look at it and come at a position. Okay? Now, once this subcommittee of cabinet has taken in collaboration with the technical team, that document now is presented. It is as good as ready. It is taken to cabinet, and that's why Kibaki's cabinet never took long, because people who have interrogated, you're coming there, you make a presentation, maybe there'll be 1 or 2 adjustments, and you're ready to go. I have a feeling that we have a cabinet where only one man speaks. It is not useful, because you cannot be a specialist in everything. You can't be. Okay. And that is why you call other people to help you in doing what you intend to do. Okay. So finally, I see, if my president is not careful, I see him collapsing very soon. Touch wood. He's just a human being. He's not a superhuman being. He is not a god or a god. Okay. He's just human. Okay. So let him work within the confines of humanity. Okay. That is human. And he's not a machine. I'm just being reminded that we are due for a break. Let's take a break before we come and get Bwana Pogisio's take on this matter. You're watching Morning Cafe. We'll be right back after this.
Na safari hii katika Mfahamu Kiongozi tutakuletea viongozi aina mbalimbali.
Nikuwe na Nisani kama 10 na pia nikuwe menua minibus. Minibus nikoniwa.
Kushinda unaangalia simu ya mzee. soma Biblia ama ingia kwa washroom ujisugue mpaka nimetoa hivi.
I don't know whether any of my children would want to get into the political field. Sijajua bado.
Kila Alhamisi saa 1:30 kuendelea.
Join us on a journey through the concrete jungles and rising skylines.
Welcome back. You're watching Morning Cafe on TV 47 with me, Fred Ndimuli. I'm still in studio with Dr. Mumbingaru, Kipruto Rapkirwa, Philip Kisia, and Samuel Pogisio. And Bona Pogisio, it's your turn now to answer this question. Is President Ruto really getting it easy? According to what the other panelists have said, this seems to be a man that has taken over so much on himself, and he could be crushing on the weight of the burden that he has imposed on himself. Do you agree with that assessment?
It's not that I agree with the assessment, it's that that's the true assessment. And we actually have a situation where you can easily experience burnout quickly. And burnout is not good for the country, especially if you take on too much on yourself as the leader. And I've said before that a leader needs to feel vulnerable, that you're actually a human being. You go through the same process as everybody else. And you should be prepared to be told that, hey, take a break. You know, let somebody else do this, that assignment. But there is a very big trust deficit in the country right now. You can't trust your fertilizer, you can't trust your food, you can't trust your leader, you can't trust, what is it? Even your boss, the degree he has, you can't trust that.
The president doesn't seem to be trusting the institutions that are there to help him.
And so you have issues of trust deficit. And I'll tell you what, for you to build back trust, there are certain things which are very basic, and he needs to begin. And one of them is clarity. Be clear with your people. Be open with your people. And compassion. At least have mercy and understanding of these people whom you are leading. If you're just building institutions and not caring about the human being, the software in the country can go south. Because there you have an angry public. You have a hungry public. You have a broke public. And you have a public which is highly educated. And in those conditions, something can definitely format that can bring issues to the government. What I believe myself is that if there is something called negative resilience, that's what I think Kenyans do practice. It's a resilience, but in a very negative sense. Accepting everything, just even if you know it's a burden that's not yours, we feel that we can survive. No food today, no food tomorrow, and that kind of resilience is not very good. It's actually a negative resilience. So I do believe that this government came into power and the president did not have time to think through his dream team, per se. Maybe the people around him were thrust at him. Maybe he did not have a choice for some of them. The parties that were with him gave the names, and he had to accept those names. But let me tell you, he has a chance now to redeem all that. He has a good chance. If he listens to advice, he has a good chance to say, well, ladies and gentlemen, we have been with you up to here. Now I want to build a team that can take me from here to there, and make sure that competency is one of the qualifications that you have on that. And I do believe that there are many people who are competent, who are qualified to take up some of these roles. It is a heavy burden already. The rainy season is here, fertilizer is not good, seed is not good. The people are waiting, and they are broke. They have no money. And so they're very angry. By the way, if you notice, people are getting angrier and angrier every day. So let's not patch here with a bandage, patch there with a bandage. And I don't understand how, as has been said by colleagues here, a city like Nairobi where you have actually a master plan. Why you want to create another master plan when you already have a master plan? And that master plan was done properly. And so the same thing with the country. If you follow what has already preceded you, if you look at exactly how other people succeeded, if you can give credit for how other people led this country, you probably become a better leader. First of all, by accepting that there are people who have been ahead of me who have done this thing. I can learn from them. I can learn from them.
And probably do not necessarily need to change everything that you've done before.
No.
Because the cracks are already showing. Free fertilizer, or fertilizer distribution, was one of the major things that this president promised. And he talked about subsidizing production as opposed to subsidizing consumption. And he based it on distribution of fertilizer. Now we are seeing that there are people who've taken advantage of that process and are distributing fake fertilizer, diluting or making nonsense out of the president's promise. And he's there watching. Doctors are on strike. And from the look of things, this will persist a while longer at a time when he's trying to transition the country to a new healthcare system. That says a lot. So many things happening. And now even members of parliament are saying, we did not read. These are the same people he depended on to actually approve this law. His deputy is saying we would need to change a few things here and there. Definitely, the failure is beginning to show. Yeah.
It is beginning to show. I agree with you. But give the president what is due to him. He valued loyalty. If you had zero qualifications, but you are loyal to his cause, his dream, you got a cabinet position. Let's give that to him. Because you look at the cabinet and there are people you know, and I know, and say, I would have trusted them in some other corner, but not where they are. So how, maybe the problem is not the cabinet, it's the person himself. It's the values that he believes. And he looks for a person who would implement that one for him. And we have got a lot of skilled, educated people who can do a good job. But if your value is not that, then it's not the person you put there, it's what is coming from inside you. And this one will have to be dealt with by another group and at another level. Having said that, he's not alone. Even from where I come from, his own deputy is now feeling the heat from the ground, and being the nice person that he is, he's saying, okay, I will talk to my leader. We will see how we are going to go around this thing. But remember, it's the people who've talked. It's not him. So we are in this situation, and if it's not handled properly, I don't know, the negative resilience that Waziri talked about may take effect. But let us not forget that the Kenyans he is dealing with today are not the ones he dealt with in 2022. They built up the expectations. They drummed up what they believed was good. So you sit back and ask, it sounded good. Then he did not have a way of implementing it. And if he had, why is he missing it? A joke is told in the political field that it's a one-man show. They go to the cabinet. I don't know how true it is. He says the opening prayer. He talks and closes
with a prayer.
With a prayer. So it's like you put a mirror in front of yourself. You go talk to the mirror, but you're talking to yourself, irrespective of whether there are other people there. mirror, mirror on the wall. If you remember, those of us who did that system, we had something that we were talking about, mirror, mirror on the wall. What do you see? And what you see is a woman in lipstick, because it's more bingaru, and she's done her hair. So maybe that's how the cabinet is. How do you expect that cabinet to perform? It will not.
And we're already seeing conversations dying prematurely. For example, the issue of climate change and that whole hullabaloo, it was a very strong debate, and we thought probably his presidency would be based a lot on climate action and climate change and carbon trading and all that. We even had a holiday in October last year. From then on, we had the World International Forest Day last week with no ceremony at all. And one wonders, if at all the president is not leading this conversation by himself, it means no one else is able to take it up. Bonakirwa.
Well, one thing that I'm happy with is that President William Ruto was pronounced the president by Chebukati and also affirmed by a court of law, because he had built expectations among Kenyans to a level that if anybody else had become president for that period, today the people will be in the streets. So it is good that his own hopes and projections and promises are consuming him, because he gave us hope, but we realized that he did not have a plan on how to achieve whatever he was telling us was achievable, including the bottom-up issue. Now, in leadership, you are told you need to build teams. And once you build those teams, allow those teams to work within their own timelines, achieve the milestones. Then you, as a leader, you take credit for the efforts of all the people so that you multiply your capacity, your efforts through the capacity of others. President Ruto has not been able to build teams. And part of the success of the Kibaki team, whether it is Kibaki 1 or 2, is he allowed people to work. He never micromanaged any ministry. He would allow you to work with your officers, and you go brief him on the need basis. I remember for the 5 years I was his minister, I only got 3 calls from State House. One, it was about food situation. Another one was about a colleague who has defected to ODM during that particular transition. And I think another one was also about a looming famine situation. But the president never talked to me on micro issues or issues of my parastatus. And something that Kenyans should know, even when, because the president has the leeway to appoint chairmen of various boards, even when he knew that is the situation, you give him 2 names. And from the 2 names, he will pick one of them. So therefore, he allowed you to choose the team that you want to work with, having chosen us as the team. So I feel President Ruto, even if he was to change cabinet, he must change his style of working to allow other people to work. Yes, some members of the cabinet could have done something else away from the cabinet, but some of the cabinet members are good people. The second issue is that the president also needs to delegate. I remember a number of things. The president would ask head of public service to consult with a certain minister. If a delegation goes to him that we want to appoint so and so in this position, and a clearing example is that they wanted to appoint somebody to the National Cereals and Produce Board. They called me and they said there is a delegation from a certain part of the country. And the delegation would have wished that so-and-so gets a position in this particular institution. Then I asked Mudaura, what about the person who is already there, because I'm the one who appointed him? They said, no, it is okay, it's going to be elevated as a permanent secretary. That is the kind of consultation. And any time as a minister, if you have an issue, you either see the president or you see head of public service. And Ambassador Mudaura was so thorough. As you go there as minister, you'll write down whatever you've said. And if there are 3 requests, after a few weeks, he will call you that the request number 1 cannot be done because of 1, 2, 3. The request number 2 is going to be done in this particular way. And Kibaki allowed the systems to work. But so you cannot block the system and you expect to deliver.
And he's a very ambitious president, and it's not bad to be ambitious, and he's well-meaning in all his intentions, but so many of those things may fail if at all he does not allow these institutions to work. This is a president who has come up with a new funding model for universities, which many people are still saying there are issues there that need to be addressed. Issues to do with doctors' strike. There's a new SHIF coming up. NHIF is currently in trouble, and people are demanding for money. Kenyans currently do not have a proper medical cover in the interim until we cross over into the new system. All these things happening at the same time. If at all these structures are not allowed to work to assist in this, probably that's why we are losing out on some of these conversations. We started off with better bottom-up economic agenda as the talking point every day. I can't remember the last time I had it. Now the climate debate seems to have fizzled out. It appears it's disjointed even in the communication, Bonakisia.
Fred, you've put it very correctly. The president seems or appears to have very good intentions, but he has some deficit, and the deficit is what will bring him down. It's a serious deficit. The deficit is in the area of management. My colleagues have talked about leadership and therefore not dwell on that one. Mm-hmm. But in terms of management, and you know, management is a science. Management is a subject like any other subject. You have to go to school and study management. You can't just be picked from the streets, or you can't just come from the bush and start exercising management. So I think that my president and friend has a deficit in that area. But he has refused to see that deficit. He thinks he can still do it. If I were him, and I want even half of what he intends to do to be actualized, to be realized, I will get in people who can cover me within the deficit that I have. Okay? But if he continues that way, he's going to fail flat on his feet. Yeah? And this is not good for this country. But having said that, because that one is obvious, he has a deficit he doesn't want to admit, I think I should comment on some of the things that he intended to do. Last year, and I'm on record, when the president made a pronouncement, and I asked myself, does he really sit down and think critically? Is he advised on some of the pronouncements that he makes? You know, he said he's going to plant in the next 10 years 15 billion trees. And my brothers here come from an agricultural area. These are farmers. They will tell you to plant 15 billion trees, you will become one of the countries that has the biggest landmass under forest. You actually need 22% of the landmass of Kenya to plant 15 billion trees. Mm-hmm. Then he even gave us a holiday. Then we saw all his cabinet ministers rushing from point A to point B to plant one tree using helicopters. Okay? So that day we are told 150 or 200 million shillings were just flashed by the government for that particular day to kickstart the greening of this city. So while the intention was good, nobody had thought through it. I don't know whether they had a policy paper. I don't know whether they had an implementation plan. And that is why you don't hear people talking about tree planting anymore. The other day, he just, off the mark, he said, this project of mine, people are not serious about planting trees. You are not serious from the word go. You cannot be, he himself was not serious. But what we had, because I said it last year, there were billions of shillings coming from our development partners for this particular program. Was the intention to raid that particular kitty? And after it was raided and is finished and there's no money, then this particular project died. He talked about carbon credit. He talked about clean energy. It's almost 2 years. Nothing is happening. So all these things are failing because of that deficit in management.
Okay.
So I would urge him to fill that deficit by bringing people. He may not like them, he may not love them. Like my sister Mumbia said, that he's a good man because he remembers people who have been around him and keeping him warm. But he must know now he's on the steering. It's not about feeling warm anymore. It's about delivering for the people of this country.
Okay.
Yeah.
And as we wrap up this discussion this morning, Bwana Pogisio, do you feel that the people around the president are now just sitting back and watching the president and probably just allowing him to fail as things go by?
Well, sometimes, Fred, sometimes I think exactly like that. I think that there are times when you just have to sit back and say, hey, I have nothing to do here, so let me just watch, get my salary, get my perks, and see what happens. Since nobody probably uses you properly, and I think that is one of the weaknesses. So, this country, and I know the president very well. I mean, president grew up in our backyard together, and so on and so on. From the very word go, he was going to be president somehow. And now he's president, and he's president now. So let's all help him if we can. And so hopefully some of the words of advice go up to there. Let's try and help, because you can carry so much burden and collapse on it because of your eagerness and the bolt of energy that you have, that you must succeed in your particular way. And I think that is what is probably going to be is Waterloo. I suspect that a lot of people are just, members of parliament now are saying, hey, I mean, even this thing, we didn't. Members of parliament coming back saying, hey, the taxation should now go slow. And because you can collect all the resources, all the revenue you want, attract the loans you want, or attract the whatever monies you want from donors. But if the character of your government is not such that they can actually manage that, because you can see the free display of opulence. It's become so easy. I think during my time and Kirwa's time, it wasn't easy for a cabinet minister to just jump on a chopper and go every weekend home. It's not easy. But how do we make it so easy that there is absolute spending spree? And not for the people, but for those who are in authority. And I thought we said bottom up. Now it is the up which is actually enjoying. So let's come to this conclusion as a country. We all need to help.
Yes.
Let's see where we can help. And how do we help?
As you make your final remarks in 1 minute, how do we help?
Yes, how do we help? Remind each other that we have our role to play. Let's do our bit. But where you can get a chance to push your member of parliament or your MCA, whatever it is, your governor, because a lot of corruption again has been devolved, and all the governors are also having it easy. So let's begin to think what kind of Kenya we are in and what kind of Kenya we're going to go into. My own personal advice is, if it is possible, make amends now. Because if you carry this thing any more than it's already heavy, it's going to drag all of us, not just the president. When the wheels grind to a halt, it's not just the person who is driving. It is those of us also who are passengers who are going to suffer. So it's about time Kenyans begin to have this debate and this discussion about where are we? I mean, if you're lost, or if you get yourself in problems, in a hole, don't dig any further, just stop.
Okay. Finally, Dr. Mumbi Ngaru.
Thank you. Thank you, Fred. I agree with Honorable Pogiso. But sometimes we feel helpless. You know you can help, but even when you approach your governor, your member of parliament, the first thing they look at you is that you are a competitor. So hands off. That is the deficit that we are talking about. I am sure it's not only happening in central Kenya. Probably that's why the current governor cannot look for Philip. Because the leaders, all of them are uncomfortable. Then we are left in a state of where do we go from here? I can tell you we are finding ourselves in a very difficult situation because the ordinary Kenyans ask you, but you people, they call us you people. I am sure they are called you people. You can do something about it. How do you do it? Nobody will listen to you. But I will want to place it just on the desk of the president himself. If he shows that he can open up and look for leaders from all over, have a sitting with them, then the others will stop being uncomfortable. And I always give an example from when I served in Arusha. My colleague in Third Yala is a director general of a unit in the office of the president in Kigali, Rwanda, where everybody who has ever served in that country and performed, they have their data within that directorate. That before the president makes appointments, that's the first director general he talks to. And that person just lifts the data and it's discussed by the technical subcommittees all over to see who fits where. If we could have that kind of a thing, we wouldn't be screaming about agriculture going wrong because there's somebody here. You know, the talents we have performed, there is talent within the people outside here. If he had the courage to stretch his hand and look for us.
Bonakiro, a minute.
Yeah, thank you, Fred. I think what this country needs is what I call social reengineering, where we bring back trust. Because you see, if every institution is doubted, every individual is doubted, every commodity is doubted, that makes this country not the beacon of hope that was in East Africa. We need thorough social reengineering, starting with the president himself, all the way to the grassroots.
Okay. Thank you, Bonakiro. Finally, Kisia.
Yeah, thank you, Fred. Now, what was baffling for me this week that ended was to see the First Lady, and she really confirmed my fears, my worst fears. I saw her in a group, and she said it to us that there were people from America, there were people from Haiti who had come to pray for our boys who are going on a suicide mission to Haiti, so that God can protect these people as they go to Haiti to assist our brothers and sisters in Haiti. And I asked myself, are we insane? I asked myself, we already know, we've been told even by Don Foote, special envoy to Haiti, that Kenyans cannot hack this mission. Stop it. Stop this stupidity. But we are still gathering together to pray to a God that has given us brains. Then I ask myself, do we for a minute, or do they who are praying think for a minute, that God, the Almighty, will entertain this absurdity and fakeness? I think we need to review ourselves.
Okay. Thank you, Bwana Kisia. Philip Kisia, former town clerk, Nairobi City. Samuel Pogisio, former ICT Minister. Kipruto Rapkirwa, former Cabinet Minister for Agriculture. And Dr. Mumbingaru, former member of the East Africa Legislative Assembly. Our power panel this Monday, helping us understand the President's challenges as we speak, this being 25th of March 2024. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for your time at TV47. To our editorial comment this morning. Now, this scandal surrounding the distribution and sale of fake fertilizer to farmers shines a spotlight on a critical issue plaguing the Kenya Kwanza administration, an apparent gap in effective planning and implementation of its programs. This debacle is not just an embarrassment, it is a clear indictment of the government's inability to see through its promises to the people. In a nation where agriculture remains the backbone of the economy, The revelation that government-sanctioned distribution efforts resulted in farmers receiving sand, limestone, or animal droppings instead of the promised fertilizer. It is deeply troubling. Such a gross mismanagement of resources raises serious questions about the government's commitment to seeing through its plans beyond looking good on paper. As the government launches an investigation into this scandal, it must recognize the broader lesson at hand. Good intentions alone are insufficient without proper planning and execution. It is no surprise that many of the government's ambitious initiatives face resistance from the public. How are Kenyans expected to trust in the efficacy of major programs such as the Affordable Housing Initiative or the Social Health Insurance Fund in the face of obvious failure in the simple distribution of fertilizer? The onus is on the government to rebuild public trust by demonstrating competence and accountability in its actions. For a farmer whose land is now under a film of expensive sand in the name of fertilizer, trust in government's good intentions will be hard to come by. It is imperative that the government learns from this failure and commits to ensuring that its well-meaning plans are watertight. Effective governance requires more than just good intentions. It demands excellence in delivery of even the smallest of promises. And that is a TV47 editorial comment this morning.
Na safari hii katika Mfahamu Kiongozi tutakuletea viongozi aina mbalimbali.
Nikuwe na nisani kama 10 na pia nikuwe menua minibus. Minibus nikoniwa.
Kushinda unaangalia simu ya mzee. Soma Biblia ama ingia kwa washroom ujisugue. Mpaka nimetoa hivi.
I don't know whether any of my children would want to get into the political field. Sijajua bado.
Kila Alhamisi saa 1:30 kuendelea.
Join us on a journey through the concrete jungles and rising skylines, where every beam, every nail tells a story of progress and vision.
In every aspect of life, you have to look at several dynamics.
From groundbreaking.
Nowadays with the tech, you can check on different websites or you check online and you can see some inspiration. So at least that one would be a direction already. I'll know like what kind of style you're going for.
To finishing touches, witness the dedication of the hard-working teams who bring these ambitious dreams to reality. The Realtor, Tuesdays at 6:30 p.m.
Na safari hii katika Mfahamu Kiongozi tutakuletea viongozi aina mbalimbali.
Nikuwe na nisani kama 10 na pia nikuwe menua minibus. Minibus nikoniwa.
Kushinda unaangalia simu ya mzee. Soma Biblia ama ingia kwa washroom ujisugue. Mpaka nimetoa hivi.
I don't know whether any of my children would want to get into the political field. Sijajua bado.
Kila Alhamisi saa 1:30 kuendelea.
Join us on a journey through the concrete jungles and rising skylines, where every beam, every nail tells a story of progress and vision.
In every aspect of life, you have to look at several dynamics.
From groundbreaking.
Nowadays with the tech, you can check on different websites or you check online and you can see some inspiration. So at least that one would be a direction already. I'll know like what kind of style you're going for.
To finishing touches, witness the dedication of the hard-working teams who bring these ambitious dreams to reality. The Realtor, Tuesdays at 6:30 p.m.
Na safari hii katika Mfahamu Kiongozi tutakuletea viongozi aina mbalimbali.
Nikuwe na nisani kama 10 na pia nikuwe menua minibus. Minibus nikoniwa.
Kushinda unaangalia simu ya mzee. Soma Biblia ama ingia kwa washroom ujisugue. Mpaka nimetoa hivi.
I don't know whether any of my children would want to get into the political field. Sijajua bado.
Kila Alhamisi saa 1:30 kuendelea.
Join us on a journey through the concrete jungles and rising skylines, where every beam, every nail tells a story of progress and vision.
In every aspect of life, you have to look at several dynamics.
From groundbreaking.
Nowadays with the tech, you can check on different websites or you check online and you can see some inspiration. So at least that one would be a direction already. I'll know like what kind of style you're going for.
To finishing touches, witness the dedication of the hard-working teams who bring these ambitious dreams to reality. The Realtor, Tuesdays at 6:30 p.m.
Na safari hii katika Mfahamu Kiongozi tutakuletea viongozi aina mbalimbali.
Nikuwe na nisani kama 10 na pia nikuwe menua minibus. Minibus nikoniwa.
Kushinda unaangalia simu ya mzee. Soma Biblia ama ingia kwa washroom ujisugue. Mpaka nimetoa hivi.
I don't know whether any of my children would want to get into the political field. Sijajua bado.
Kila Alhamisi saa 1:30 kuendelea.
Join us on a journey through the concrete jungles and rising skylines, where every beam, every nail tells a story of progress and vision.
In every aspect of life, you have to look
AM
at several...
and let the fun begin.
right, a very good morning to you, Karibu Sana. This is Morning Cafe. I'm Stanley Nyarungita. It's a Monday from 8 a.m. all the way to 10 a.m. discussing matters health and just telling you what you need to know. This morning we discuss matters tuberculosis and why are we having this conversation. Yesterday was World TB Day and the whole commemorations and events continue today. We do expect Health Cabinet Secretary Susan Akumicha to be commemorating this particular event in Murang'a County, and right here in studio we'll be having Dr. Ireri Victor for this conversation. Looking sharp.
Thank you so much.
I hope hujanyeshewa leo.
Hakunyesha kwenye nimetoka.
Sawa. All right, and later on around 9 a.m. we get into your weekly dose of matters first aid and just telling you what to expect on that. But before that, so as the global community observes the World TB Day, under the theme, Yes, We Can End TB, the spotlight falls on the ongoing challenges faced by individuals battling tuberculosis. Despite medical advancements, those afflicted continue to grapple with stigma and the debilitating side effects of the treatment of drugs. Faiza Murin tells us her journey with tuberculosis in this report. Listen in.
On a day like today, the spotlight shines on individuals like Faiza Maureen, whose journey epitomizes the challenges faced by those battling tuberculosis. Faiza was diagnosed with TB in 2022, a moment that plunged her into a world of uncertainty and fear. Initially, she says, she grappled with the weight of stigma, feeling isolated and misunderstood.
I was diagnosed with TB in 2022, like a day today, World TB Day. We went for outreach as healthcare workers. Then I produced my sample. The sample turned out as positive TB. I took it negative.
But Faiza's journey didn't end with diagnosis. She soon confronted the harsh reality of TB treatment, as well as the weakening side effects of medications that took a toll on her physical and emotional well-being.
I experienced some side effects of the drugs, like the swelling of the lower limbs, pain of the lower limbs, but that one did not stop me from continuing with the drugs. I continued with the drugs at the first phase. For those signs, I experienced the first phase. When I go to the second phase, they started disappearing.
According to Homa Bay County Director of Health Services, Dr. Gordon Okomo, 40% of TB cases are still missing annually, according to TB Prevalence Survey report of 2016.
These patients continue infecting others, adding to the already big number of undiagnosed people. For us to find all people with TB, we need to realize that TB is everyone's business and therefore take responsibility.
Tuberculosis remains to be a threat in the country, rated as one of the killer diseases, especially prevalent in the rural areas. In January this year, the Ministry of Health, through Principal Secretary for Public Health and Professional Standards, Mary Muthoni, launched a plan to combat tuberculosis in the country. The 5-year strategic plan aims to ensure quality care for TB, leprosy, and lung disease for all Kenyans. Data from the Ministry of Health in November 2023 indicate that findings and treatment of TB have improved after a sharp drop in 2020. Last year, 90,841 people with TB were identified out of the estimated 112,000. Ann Odida, TV 47.
Well, thank you, Ann Odida, for that. And whatever was on that particular report will just help us in this conversation, just understanding what they were saying, the victims as well as the experts. You can always be part of this conversation, 0795 045 864. 0795 045 864. You can call in live. Dr. will be here to just demystify the kind of myths and misconceptions and whatever you always hear about TB. He'll be telling you on that. Dr. Ireri Victor, karibu sana.
Thank you so much.
Who is Dr. Ireri, first of all, before you begin?
Dr. Ireri is a medical doctor who recently graduated, finished internship, and I'm currently doing other things.
Okay. So your ile slot here, the interns when the minister wants to call junior doctors, really?
Not really. I'm in that lot where we are the so-called unemployed doctors.
Yeah, all right.
but we have something to do with our own lives.
All right. So this, even as a general, Dr. Peter, just helping us understand tuberculosis. First off, what is tuberculosis?
Tuberculosis is a very old disease. It dates back to more than 30 years ago, based on archaeological evidence. The first reports were more than 2,300 years ago among the Chinese and the Indians. Tuberculosis, in other words, is caused by a bacterium belonging to the Mycobacterium tuberculosis complex. It's more than 9 bacterium that can cause tuberculosis, but the most common one is the Mycobacterium tuberculosis. I think I've confused you a little bit, but it's okay. Just know Mycobacterium tuberculosis is the commonest cause of TB.
Right. So how, in your experience, maybe a kind of prevalence, is it probably quite easy to get someone with TB?
TB is quite prevalent, especially in lower and middle income countries. In the first world, it's not as prevalent as we are as in these areas of the world. And then there's places where TB is more prevalent than the others. It's called there are 30 countries in the world which make up to almost 80% of TB cases in the world. Kenya is among them. Others include Pakistan, South Africa, and India. Every day, about 3,500 people die of TB worldwide. And so it's a very devastating disease, but there's a cure and it's preventable.
So how does it all start? How does all this start? How does one get TB?
You get TB in various ways, but the most common form of TB, which infects the lungs, you get it through inspiring or inhaling rather droplets with the bacterium. So it's an airborne disease most of the time. But there are other forms of TB which may be caused by ingestion or drinking unpasteurized milk that has not been boiled from cows that are infected with TB. But that's very rare.
Okay.
Yeah, but the most common cause is the airborne, just like COVID, from sneezing, coughing. Yes, that promotes the spread of TB.
And Dr. that's interesting because the National TB, Leprosy and Lung Program tells us about 40% of Kenyans infected with TB were undetected and thus untreated. And even in the report that we were listening to, it was also reiterated there. So 40% is quite a huge number. That would probably mean, let's say, 1 in 4 of maybe 10 people, 4 out of the 10 of them probably are infected. First off, because I mean, you've told us that would be spread through inhalation. So there are 10 people in a room. Chances are 4 people are infected with TB. Break it down for us so that, simplify for us so that we understand what these numbers really mean. Because most instances we find ourselves in large groups of more than 10. Mepanda matatu asubuhi, matatu waliamua jazani, and it's a 14-seater and there are probably like 20. You go to probably an event, there's so many people there. You can't really know who has TB, who doesn't. So help us understand what these numbers even mean.
There are 3 things here. Given that you've correctly mentioned about 40% of people have what we call latent TB infection. In layman's words, that means you have the bacterium in your system, in your body rather, but the body is able to fight the bacterium to an extent you don't show the symptoms, the so-called asymptomatic. So if we are 10 here, probably 4 of us here, as you've correctly mentioned, have the TB infection, the latent TB infection.
0 symptoms?
0 symptoms, yes.
Okay.
Some of us with the latent TB infection might progress to be symptomatic or start showing the symptoms, but that's not always the case.
So how does that happen?
That happens especially when you are immunocompromised. That means your system, your ability to fight off the pathogens or the germs, the TB bacterium is compromised. And there are risk factors for that. For example, HIV/AIDS is a risk factor for tuberculosis, smoking, drinking alcohol, malnourished people, and that's why even TB is more common in the arid and semi-arid areas in Kenya compared to other areas. Overcrowding, for example, in prisons, churches, mosques, that's the areas of worships, as well as schools and barracks. Those are areas where if a person has an active TB, they are more likely to spread it to others who maybe they did not have the latent TB infection, but now, given that they've been exposed to the bacillus or the bacteria, they acquire the infection and start being symptomatic and spread it to other people as well.
Right. Allow me to break down some of this, the predictors that you're mentioning. For example, smoking, and maybe you've also mentioned alcohol
use.
But then, so at what extent? Because you've made us understand that so 40% are infected, but then for you to actually now get the disease, that means your immune system has been weakened by HIV and probably the use of smoking and also alcohol use. But at what point, even for those two, because this is a conversation we've been having, even as a country, matters drug abuse and all that. So at what point does your immune system get weak to a point where you move from being infected to actually getting the disease?
That's a good question. The point is not well defined, but when your white blood cells count goes below a certain threshold, then your ability to fight off the pathogens, or in this case the mycobacterium, is compromised. And at that point, the mycobacterium or the TB pathogens are more they are more likely to spread, either replicate, that means they multiply in your system and end up even affecting more organs. Not only the lungs, they can go to literally every part of the body, apart from the teeth, the hair, and the nails. But all the other organs can be affected.
So that means because you're infected, so this is an underlying factor. So, for example, let's say the alcohol use, for example, intake of illicit liquor. So this might lead to liver cirrhosis, for example. And so this would, again, weaken your immune system. So at this point, your immune system has been weakened. So you're battling with liver cirrhosis, for example. And then TB was underlying there. So because the immune system has been weakened, so it pops up. So at this point, you're dealing with two diseases at the same time. So how does TB, the fact that it has now been awakened, so to speak, deal in your body together with the other kind of disease that is there?
Okay. So if you have TB and you have another disease, that we call comorbidity. You have two diseases, two or more diseases at the same time. And as you've rightly mentioned, alcohol can lead to liver cirrhosis. That's damage to the liver cells. And the liver is very important in synthesizing or producing some of the substances that help us fight the diseases. Now that the liver has been damaged, we cannot fight off the disease. And now imagine a situation where you have the liver cirrhosis and now you're infected with tuberculosis and now you want to take the drugs. Some of the drugs that are used to treat TB also to some extent affect the liver. So now you are taking alcohol, your liver is damaged, and then the drugs that you're going to take the anti-TBs, some of them will, to some extent, damage the liver. So you're in a catch-22 situation. So prevention is always better than cure.
And because when you talk about prevention, you talk about matters, the vaccine, the whole BCG. We can talk about that, so because at what point, even for a child, should they get this vaccine? Even as we talk about the whole vaccine and prevention. Before we also take a look at a few numbers here.
Basically, the prevention of TB starts from the moment you are born, and that's for in countries where the prevalence and incidence of TB is high, and that means the low and middle income countries as well as the top 30 countries with the highest burden of TB disease. One of the vaccines that's given is usually the BCG vaccine. If you go around in Kenya and look at people's elbows, they usually have a scar around here. That means you've been vaccinated against. You've received the BCG vaccine that protects you against tuberculosis. The scar doesn't always mean that you've been vaccinated. I mean, the lack of a scar doesn't mean that you've not been vaccinated. Some people don't develop the scar despite being vaccinated. Beyond that, the vaccine is only effective in preventing, it doesn't, it's not 100% effective.
Because that was now my next question. Is it, silver bullet?
It's not a silver bullet. It's like COVID. You could have been vaccinated, but people used to still get the COVID-19 infection. But now the severity of the infection you get is not as severe as those who are not vaccinated. Yes.
So what will lead to, because you have a situation where, so at what age, so that we proceed to, so at what age even for this child, should they get this vaccine?
The vaccine is given at birth.
At birth or at birth?
Yeah, immediately the child is born, and before they are discharged from the hospital. And also for those born at home and or in places where they are not in a healthcare facility, they should receive the vaccine within 2 weeks of delivery.
So what would lead now to the fact that we would have infections among children, yet they have been vaccinated?
One thing about children is that their immune system, their immune system is still maturing. It's unlike adults. Their cells are still like learning to fight infection. And one thing about us human beings or adults is that our cells usually have, some of our white blood cells usually have a thing called memory. They can remember you had this pathogen, so when the same pathogen is introduced into a system, they are now able to say, we did this, this, and this thing, and so they fight it better. But now for children, they don't have that quote-unquote memory. You get. So their ability to fight off these pathogens is compromised, and that's why it's advocated to give the BCG vaccine as soon as birth.
So are there people who having the TB infection, can they now transmit this, the TB, to someone? If they are TB infected and not, they don't yet have the disease?
No. You cannot transmit, for persons with latent TB infection, they cannot transmit TB unless they convert to TB disease. And that's the luck we have. Like not all of us, a significant proportion of us have the latent TB infection, but that doesn't mean that we go spreading out TB. Yes, but for the active TB, either primary or secondary TB, then those persons are likely to spread TB to others.
Right. So even as we talk about World TB Day, which was yesterday, I want to run some numbers with you, just to take a look at what these numbers really mean. So first off, and these are typically numbers from World Health Organization. So about 1.3 million people died from TB. That is in 2022. And this is during the time of COVID-19. So even as we also continue these numbers, we can hold it there and just talk about, and even the second one actually, TB is the second leading infectious killer after COVID-19. So we have the first, two really resonating with COVID-19. Take us back to during that time, because you're telling us TB would be an underlying factor. They're now having a disease that would weaken your immune system. For example, COVID-19. How did it play in this particular time?
During COVID, just before COVID, TB was the leading cause of mortality or death due to a single infectious agent. Actually, there were 2 times more deaths caused by TB than HIV/AIDS. But now with the advent of COVID, COVID overtook it, and now TB took the second place. And remember, there was a lockdown during the COVID period, and maybe the testing wasn't as much, and some of the deaths due to COVID some of the deaths were attributed to COVID and not TB. So statistically, we can't be so sure about how TB was, the prevalence of TB during COVID times. But now there has been a resurgence in TB cases, and the numbers are going up, given that compared to now, given that COVID is declining in its prevalence and incidence.
And interesting, you mentioned even declining in its prevalence, because even today, when you're taking a look at the newspapers, on the front page of People Daily, it was saying schools are now reporting, this is Kenyan schools are now reporting new COVID-19 cases. And this has been the case even last week. When you take a look at what the papers were saying, probably even doctors trying to understand, are we having a whole return of COVID, or it's just a whole flu? And we took a look at even the weather right now. Just people are trying to understand, is this COVID, is this flu? So this was in 2022. Right now, even when you're having reports of probably a return of COVID-19, are we expected to see more cases of TB diseases? The whole 40% of infections now moving from infections to diseases.
Given there's actually a new variant of COVID that was reported some time ago, it's called the JN1 virus, and JN1 variant, and it's striking to know that it's evading the immune system. And given that, probably, this is my assumption now, it's based on my opinion, probably if it can evade the immune system, then it can weaken the immune system and thereby increase the incidence of TB, given that your immune system is compromised.
And you had mentioned that because these are not for schools, because even as People Daily was reporting, COVID-19 cases in schools. So in schools, you'd find learners around there, and in most instances, a classroom that has even about like 40 learners. When we're having such, and even such kind of reactions to, we might probably be seeing new TB cases being reported, even among people who are 18 and below, the children really. What should be done? What will you now advise for people in such kind of situations?
What I would advise people in such situations is to take precautionary measures. If you have a cough or if you want to sneeze, don't sneeze letting out the air to everyone's face. Just do this. Alternatively, you can use a mask. Actually, the mask prevents others from getting, doesn't prevent you most of the time, just prevents others, you from spreading the disease, yes. And also overcrowding, I wouldn't advocate for overcrowding.
in schools, basically. So and this is what really COVID-19 taught us. Oh, yes. And still on more, so this is a report by National Lung and TB 2021 annual report, basically saying that TB prevalence in children under age of the 14 years was at 9%, according to Elizabeth Glaser, Pediatrics AIDS Foundation. So Kenya is missing 44% of children with TB. And so this means that there is a huge number of undiagnosed TB cases among the children. In your understanding, what's the danger of having this at this point? I mean, having children at the age of 14 and below at such a high prevalence, not diagnosed at that point, now later in the future, and even for the whole society. What's the danger?
I think that's quite dangerous, and the effects of that are unforetold, in the sense that, one, TB in children, most people do not think a child has TB. And even from my experience, while working in the pediatric unit, you'd find that almost always TB was the list of the differentials. You'd go from pneumonia, etc., and then by the time you're reaching TB, it's almost after you've given all the antibiotics and you've seen this child is not improving. And that means the child would have probably spread the TB to others. And one thing about children, they might have a typical presentation. By atypical, I mean the common signs and symptoms that we have for TB, they might not show it. They're infected, yes, and it's an active case, but they may not be having a productive cough. They may not be having night sweats as usual. They may not be having the extremes of fevers, but they are infected and they can spread. They're infected and have the disease and can spread to others. So the effects of having children with TB are out of this world. Yeah.
So typically, the signs and symptoms of this child who has TB and the TB disease, they mirror a child who has flu. So because you tell us you worked in the pediatric. So for example, a child walked in and they have fever, and this one has TB. So both of them will be having somewhat the same signs and symptoms.
Yes, they may have almost the same signs and symptoms, but now the one with the flu will heal, or the flu will go away in a few days. But now this other child with TB, despite giving various courses of antibiotics, you may find that these symptoms are not going away. And that should ring a bell to you. You might need to do a test to diagnose the TB now.
So at what point is the test done?
I think now that's based on clinical experience, and there's no really a point at which you're supposed to do the test. But now, in level 2 and 3 hospitals, we have what we call the active case TB finding, where despite any person who has come to the hospital, either level 2, 3, or even 4 facility, you have to actively look out for the signs and symptoms of TB. And so if you suspect now, based on clinical suspicion, or that a child or an adult has TB, now you are supposed to escalate that and now start the diagnostics.
So that's the first day for level 2?
For level 2, 3 hospitals, they need to actively look out for TB.
On the first day?
At the moment of contact with the patient.
All right. Let's continue taking a look at some of those numbers. And so this is a whole kind of global outlook to also understand even how Kenya really plays a look at that. So taking a look at the first one, the 1.3 million people died from TB in 2022. This is according to World Health Organization. Also taking a look at TB is the second leading infectious killer after COVID-19. So the third one there, global efforts to combat tuberculosis have saved an estimated 75 million lives since the year 2000. So this means even the progress seems quite interesting. We'll be getting to that with you. And the other one there, $13 billion is needed annually for TB prevention, diagnosis, treatment, and care to achieve the global target agreed at the 2018 UN high-level meeting on TB. Lecturer, let's talk about the progress and in your own understanding how the progress has been since 2000, because when you take a look at 2000 until right now, 24 years later, technology has changed and things have changed. Even the populations have changed. Population has increased over the years. Walk us through what your understanding of how the progress has been.
We have made significant strides, but I think we are not yet there. TB was first discovered by Dr. Robert Koch in 1882 on a day like yesterday, and that's why we commemorate that day. And since then, there have been strides here and there. For example, in the 1940s with the advent of the antibiotics, and now in the year 2015, there was a high-level meeting on how we can end this TB. And there were targets set for the next decade from 2015 to 2025. For example, there was supposed to be a 50% reduction in mortality. Based on figures as of 2022, we haven't achieved that target. We are at 9%. Compare 50% to 9%. Yes, we've made some progress, but we are not yet there. For new infections, we were supposed to reduce that by 75%. We are yet to touch 30%. So in as much as we are commemorating, we cannot celebrate the World Anti-TB Day unless we achieve our targets. So that's why the World Tuberculosis Day is usually not about celebration, but advocating and educating the public on ways in which we can prevent and cure TB. Another advance, I would say, is in 3 years ago, there was a new drug combination. It's not a new entirely drug, but there was a new drug combination that was approved by FDA, where we can use it to treat TB for 4 months instead of the 6 months. But there are no guidelines in Kenya that support its use. Yes.
Right. And speaking of even the whole advancements, I'd want us to have that now in the whole tail end, and just getting to understand where we are at on matters advancements and what we are taking a look at. There's a whole announcement by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. We'll be taking a look at that in a few. But then you're talking about things we're not yet there. And this year's theme is yes, we can end TB. First of all, what do you think about that theme?
I feel it's the right theme for this year. It gives us hope on how we can end the TB menace, the epidemic. TB is not a death sentence, it's preventable, and most importantly, it's curable. So with all our concerted efforts, I think, yes, we can end TB.
Though research shows that majority of deaths occur during the whole intensive phase of treatment. So probably someone might maybe get the disease, but then now even trying to save this person's life might be difficult because they probably avail themselves, or the whole treatment began in their whole intensive care. Why are we even talking about this at this day and age?
If I can extrapolate that from what causes early deaths, one, we have the delays. There's a delay in seeking help. So you feel you are sick, but you want to delay, you want to see what's going to happen, you think it's a cold, it's going to go away, but it doesn't go away, so you delay seeking help, and that compromises your body further. And then there are other delays, for example, delay on our part as healthcare workers, where we are not clinically, we are not having the suspicion of TB. For example, as I've told you, in children, we can miss that, and it's easy to miss that. So if you're not clinically suspicious that a person might be having the TB, then the TB may progress, and the more advanced a disease is, the harder it is to cure it.
So, Dr. because we have understood that 40% of Kenyans will have TB infections, but then they don't really have the symptoms. So it's really hard to know if this person has a TB. So is there any benefit for me to go and get tested? And, you know, daktari niambie, uko na TB, but ni infection too, so si worry. And actually, do they even tell you that? Is there any benefit for me to go and get tested?
Most of the time now we are in the, they say uko ni maju, I think, I don't want to say it, but probably tuko huku machini. But now the tests used to test for latent TB infection are not commonly available. And in as much as, for example, there's one you inject a purified form of the tuberculosis protein. It's called the tubercular skin test. And it doesn't always turn out, it can turn out positive, but it's not accurate in the sense that it might be positive, but that doesn't mean you have the TB infection, right? And so, and then there are others which are...
That's quite dangerous. I mean, the fact that it was rolled out and it's not accurate.
I mean, in science, it's about experimenting, and it's about the numbers. So it might not be accurate, but it serves a purpose. It may not be 100%, but let's say it's 80% accurate. At least it's 80%, but we have no other choice but to use it. In as much as we know, we might be missing some cases.
So at the end of the day, what does it tell you? Does it tell you that you have the infection, or you may have?
You may have. It doesn't outrightly say you have the infection. It's not a definitive yes, but it's most likely. You get from the probability, it's most likely. You most likely have a TB infection. So I've gone and tested, and I've got that I may have the infection. So how beneficial is that information for me? Because at the end of the day, you've told me I can't transmit this TB, and I'm healthy, you know, and all, ninaishi fiti, nakula vegetables and everything. I have a very strong immunity system. How beneficial is telling me I may have a TB infection to me? Now, you may be started medications. You may be started medications, anti-TBs, but they are not the regular course of anti-TB that you take when you have an active disease. Yes.
Okay. All right. So another whole bit is now TB as well as HIV. Now let's get into also the myths and misconceptions, because they really lie in what you're telling us. We're not there yet. And there's always a huge misconception, because, I mean, we take a look at the whole report and the lady talking about matter stigma and everything. First of all, even as you also debunk for us, is there any relationship between TB as well as HIV? And where does stigma come into play when we are talking about TB?
Yes, there's a huge correlation between HIV and TB, in the sense that they are correlated, but not, there's no causative relationship, but there's a correlative relationship in the sense that they may occur at the same time, and one, HIV can predispose one to TB, and having TB is a pointer towards worsening HIV/AIDS. As I had mentioned earlier on, HIV/AIDS is a risk factor for tuberculosis, and so most people who are non-adherent to their antiretroviral drugs are more likely to become immunocompromised, and so they are more likely to have the latent TB infection to be reactivated, and now they go into the TB disease.
Right, so, and now even for this person, Can they, because that's a whole other bit of misconceptions, are they able to stay in one, house with this person and all that? Debunk that for us.
That's a good question. So when you find you have TB, you're supposed to, the healthcare worker rather, should trace the other contacts, all the other people you have interacted with. That will help. It's called contact tracing. I think early in the days of COVID, there was something like contact tracing. So the same case with TB, you have to trace all the other people you have been in contact with. Once you start the anti-TB therapy, if you are adherent, within 2 weeks, you're not supposed to be able to transmit the infection. So the first 2 weeks, you should be isolated, but within 2 weeks, we have what we call the negativization of the sputum, in the sense that the sputum, because it's the one that contains the...
Simplify that for us, Kenyatta.
The sputum is the one that contains the tuberculosis bacteria, right? And it's the one that when you sneeze, now the other person inhales and gets the TB. Now, if you've been taking the drugs, now you are... you have the disease, you have the active form of the disease, you are infectious, right? Now, if you take the drugs, the anti-TB drugs, for the first 2 weeks, if you are adherent, then the sputum will cease to have the bacteria that can cause TB.
Right.
You get? So within 2 weeks of taking the drugs and being adherent, you can interact with others, but still you have to take the precautionary measures.
Does this apply for adults as well as young children?
Yes.
And mostly young children, let's say below 5. And my question would really be, even in matters of testing, because you tell us, the whole contact tracing, you'd been in this same room with this person, so let's say there was a 3-year-old child there, and as well as, let's say, a 21-year-old. So even the testing, because they've done the contact tracing, and they've met this 21-year-old as well as this 3-year-old child, are they going to do the testing the same for both of them?
Now, the testing is usually the same, both in children and in adults. And there are other special cases where some tests may be added, for example, for persons living with HIV/AIDS who are in advanced stages, there are additional tests that can be done. But typically, the tests are usually the same. For children who are young, and for example, they are born of a mother who is TB positive, they are usually given drugs that may prevent them from acquiring the infection, because they are still going to breastfeed, you get. And so they have to be given something that will prevent them from acquiring the infection.
So there's a whole possibility of mother to baby transmission of TB?
Yes, because they're in close proximity rather.
Is it now due to the whole breast milk or largely inhalation?
Inhalation. You acquire TB through inhalation. Most of the forms. Most common forms through inhalation. It's just a very minor percentage where you get it from drinking cow's milk, infected cow's milk that has not been boiled to the required standards. But the rest is mostly through inhalation of infected droplets.
So is this cow also infected with TB, or what exactly is it infected with, so that even someone watching us ajue hii ng'ombe yangu nafaa niende ipimwe, what exactly?
Well, TB is a disease that affects many organisms, including humans, monkeys, and cows. And so there's a species that infects mostly cows. And once you take milk, which has not been boiled, then you can get TB of the abdomen. Yes, now you get TB of the abdomen.
Right. So if you're going to be drinking this particular milk, is it going to be, now, are you going to have the TB disease, or you're going to be infected?
Now, you can be infected if you are not showing the symptoms.
Okay.
But once you get to show the symptoms, you start, now we call it TB disease. As long as you are asymptomatic, that is, you don't have the symptoms, you are TB infected. But now if you have the symptoms, you progress to TB disease.
All right. A whole other bit, still on matters, the whole misconceptions, before we wrap it up on matters, advances, overcrowding. And a huge number of our viewers would probably be around Nairobi and its metropolitan areas, and even in different cities. And someone would tell you, maybe in Komali Kama pipeline, and where I live, there's so many people around here. And you're telling me that I'd probably get it through inhalation of even the air that I breathe around me. And there's, wherever I work and I stay, there's just overcrowding. How do we really solve this?
One, for the person who is coughing and sneezing, they have to take the precautionary measures. You don't have to spread it. You can do as I had mentioned, where you try to avoid spreading the air droplets. Number two, if it's in an enclosed space, try to open the windows to ensure this circulation of air. Three, if you know someone who has TB, you can, I don't want to say, you can tell them to be adherent to the medications, etc. So it's a matter of all of us playing a role in preventing this. Yes, but I wouldn't say that now we stop interacting with people. Yeah.
Oh yes, and still on the whole national TB program, there's about 97,126 new cases of TB were reported in Kenya. That was last year. And so even as we wrap it up, so the Bill and Melinda Gates Medical Research Institute, so last week announced a whole phase 3 clinical trial to assess the efficacy of TB vaccine. And apparently Kenya is among the about 7 countries involved in this particular trial. First off, how big of a deal is this that you are, being onboarded on such kind of trials, and what do you envision when it comes to the next time we're even talking about ending TB, the whole Vision 2030 that we have on this?
You're right. I think it was on the 19th of this month that the phase 3 clinical trial was launched, first in South Africa, and then at the peak of the research, there will be several countries where Kenya is one of them. And it's a good progress towards the fight against TB, because if we can get one thing that can, obviously there cannot be a one strategy to kill TB, but it has to be multi-pronged, it has to be multi-sectorial. And so when the scientists do their part, they develop new vaccines, etc. If it works, if this phase 3 trial shows that it's working, then there are possibilities it can be approved by the FDA and other approving organizations, and it can be taken up and we can see TB epidemic ending.
All right, fantastic. In 30 seconds, your last thoughts.
My last thoughts, TB is an old disease that has been here with us for a very long time. It's preventable, and most importantly, it's curable, and it's upon all of us to take the mandate and prevent it. And for those of us who are termed with curing it, we should take up the mandate and ensure that it's eradicated.
All right, fantastic. Can see definitely this particular vaccine, they say, will be the first vaccine to help pulmonary TB in adolescents and adults. So the whole theme of this continues. Yes, we can end TB. Sandy Sada for being part of this conversation, Dr. Ireri Victor, General Doctor. This wraps up this conversation right here, but it continues on our socials on how we can end TB. We'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll get into matters first aid and just giving you tips and the whole ABCs of the whole matters incident management. And Laila and Abira will be joining us from St. John Ambulance for that conversation. You can always call in live and get all those tips that you probably need when it comes to what do you do when you see an accident. Do you take out your phone and start recording? What do you really do? Stick around.
Na safari hii katika Mfahamu Kiongozi tutakuletea viongozi aina mbalimbali.
Nikuwe na Nisani kama 10 na pia nikuwe menua minibus. Minibus nikoniwa.
Kushinda unaangalia simu ya mzee. Soma Biblia ama ingia kwa washroom ujisugue. Mpaka nimetoa hivi.
I don't know whether any of my children would want to get into the political field. Sijajua bado.
Kila Alhamisi saa 1:30 kuendelea.
Join us on a journey through the concrete jungles and rising skylines, where every beam, every nail tells a story of progress and vision.
In every aspect of life, you have to look at several dynamics.
From groundbreaking.
Nowadays with the tech, you can check on different websites or you check online and you can see some inspiration. So at least that one would be a direction already. I'll know like what kind of style you're going for.
To finishing touches, witness the dedication of the hard-working teams who bring these ambitious dreams to reality. The Realtor, Tuesdays at 6:30 p.m.
Na safari hii katika Mfahamu Kiongozi tutakuletea viongozi aina mbalimbali.
Nikuwe na Nisani kama 10 na pia nikuwe menua minibus. Minibus nikoniwa.
Kushinda unaangalia simu ya mzee. Soma Biblia ama ingia kwa washroom ujisugue. Mpaka nimetoa hivi.
I don't know whether any of my children would want to get into the political field. Sijajua bado.
Kila Alhamisi saa 1:30 kuendelea.
Join us on a journey through the concrete jungles and rising skylines, where every beam, every nail tells a story of progress and vision.
In every aspect of life, you have to look at several dynamics.
From groundbreaking.
Nowadays with the tech, you can check on different websites or you check online and you can see some inspiration. So at least that one would be a direction already. I'll know like what kind of style you're going for.
To finishing touches, witness the dedication of the hard-working teams who bring these ambitious dreams to reality. The Realtor, Tuesdays at 6:30 p.m.
Na safari hii katika Mfahamu Kiongozi tutakuletea viongozi aina mbalimbali.
Nikuwe na nisani kama 10 na pia nikuwe menua minibus. Minibus nikoniwa.
Kushinda unaangalia simu ya mzee, soma Biblia ama ingia kwa washroom ujisugue mpaka nimetoa hivi.
I don't know whether any of my children would want to get into the political field. Sijajua bado.
Kila Alhamisi saa 1:30 kuendelea.
Join us on a journey through the concrete jungles and rising skylines, where every beam, every nail tells a story of progress and vision.
In every aspect of life, you have to look at several dynamics.
From groundbreaking.
Nowadays with the tech, you can check on different websites or you check online and you can see some inspiration. So at least that one would be a direction already. I'll know like what kind of style you're going for.
To finishing touches, witness the dedication of the hard-working teams who bring these ambitious dreams to reality. The Realtor, Tuesdays at 6:30 p.m.
Na safari hii katika Mfahamu Kiongozi tutakuletea viongozi aina mbalimbali.
Nikuwe na nisani kama 10 na pia nikuwe menua minibus. Minibus nikoniwa.
Kushinda unaangalia simu ya mzee, soma Biblia ama ingia kwa washroom ujisugue mpaka nimetoa hivi.
I don't know whether any of my children would want to get into the political field. Sijajua bado.
Kila Alhamisi saa 1:30 kuendelea.
Join us on a journey through the concrete jungles and rising skylines, where every beam, every nail tells a story of progress and vision.
In every aspect of life, you have to look at several dynamics.
From groundbreaking.
Nowadays with the tech, you can check on different websites or you check online and you can see some inspiration. So at least that one would be a direction already. I'll know like what kind of style you're going for.
To finishing touches, witness the dedication of the hard-working teams who bring these ambitious dreams to reality. The Realtor, Tuesdays at 6:30 p.m.
Na safari hii katika Mfahamu Kiongozi tutakuletea viongozi aina mbalimbali.
Nikuwe na nisani kama 10 na pia nikuwe menua minibus. Minibus nikoniwa.
Kushinda unaangalia simu ya mzee, soma Biblia ama ingia kwa washroom ujisugue mpaka nimetoa hivi.
I don't know whether any of my children would want to get into the political field. Sijajua bado.
Kila Alhamisi saa 1:30 kuendelea.
progress on a journey through the concrete jungles and rising skylines, where every beam, every nail tells a story of progress
of this year. And there have been so many accidents, and you've probably been a witness of an accident, or you've probably been a victim. Ulikuwa kwa gari and something happened, an accident happened along the road, and that car probably veered off the road, or you're probably just passing, alafu gari ama pikipiki ikakuja ikakugonga. But then, did you actually understand what it entails when it comes to incident management and courtesy of St. John Ambulance? Kutusaidia for this conversation, Laila Nabwira, karibu sana.
Thank you so much.
Once again, we meet the whole conversations that we ever had, bado nazitumia.
Sure, sure.
Oh, yes.
That's a good thing.
And back at home, or wherever you're watching us from, you can be part of this conversation, 0795 045 864. Uliza Leila all those questions that you have. Kama ni feedback, maybe ulijaribu kitu fulani and you realize, by the way, this actually works. But when we talk about incident management and accident, what do you understand from even that word, an accident?
Well, with the mention of the word an accident, number one, it's not wanted. It's not planned. In Kiswahili tunasema ajali haina kinga, sindio? So most people believe accidents are inevitable.
Oh, yes.
All right, and sometimes they are overwhelming. They are also shrouded with very nasty scenes, with a broken bone and bleeding and all those kinds of things.
Oh, yes.
So basically speaking, that is an image of an accident. And in an accident also, we also have things like, we could also have some other dangers like electricity, power lines, oncoming traffic. We may also be having rowdy people on the scene. You've seen situations where a motorist has been, or let's say a boda rider has been hit and then it just goes out of control. And that is all the hula baloos that surround accidents.
Oh, yes. And now that you've rightfully put us for that, mtu anaweza kuwa anashangaa ni nini inaendelea hapa chini. So this is our makeshift kind of accident. Laila, you'll be telling us what happened in this accident. Kiatu yake moja ilirushwa huko. Sijui kama alitrip akaanguka, lakini anakaa relax, so sijui kama ako sawa. Yes.
Very nice.
Oh, yes. But then now, first off, so because let's say I was walking along, let's say, Thika Road, and I found this accident here, what's the first thing that should be in my mind?
Now, that's a very important question, because that is one of the areas that we have failed as lay people trying to assist people on the road. Now, one of the first important things that you need to do in every accident scene you ever find yourself in, number one, is assess the situation first.
Right.
It's important to assess so that, number one, in assessment, you are able to understand what happened in that scenario. If you understand what has happened, then you are able to figure out what are some of the dangers present, because in the process of going to assist somebody, you might also put yourself in line of danger.
Okay.
So when you assess, you're able to identify dangers present. You're also able to prioritize how are you going to assist the person. Because you see, if we come in a scene, for example, it's a road traffic accident, we still have oncoming vehicles. Probably we have maybe it's a head-on collision, so there's probability of one of the vehicles igniting into a fire, and maybe the crowd is coming in. So you see, if you are there as a first aider, or if you're there and you need to help, first stand at a safe distance, assess the situation. What is happening there? What is currently happening? And if I don't act quickly, what will happen? And then other than that also, I've said you will be able to prioritize how you're going to respond when you assess the situation. So the very first and basic step you need to take for any person responding to any situation, you have to stop, first assess the situation before you take any action.
As a trained trainer, as a trainer yourself, how long do you take to assess? Mafika, this is Thika Road, things are looking hectic and all that, things are it's a whole mayhem. How long do you take to assess and actually now help her?
Now, I would advise that assessment should take the shortest time possible, especially in road traffic accidents, because lives, we say in first aid, we say time is equals to tissue. Every second you waste, a tissue is dying. So the faster you assess, the better.
The reason I'm asking that is because as a trainer, you'd have that mentality. You've been trained for different times. As for me, I don't know about assessing. I just see her, I'd see probably there's blood probably oozing from maybe her ears or somewhere. Maybe kuna, let's say, ilikuwa gari, and there's probably a glass that has pierced maybe one of her thighs. That would probably be whatever I'm thinking.
Yes.
And I'm panicking at that time.
Yes.
Na nitataka nimsaidie. Maybe hata ni mtu najua, pole sana, you don't nitaka kutoa. Is that even correct?
Yes, the fact that you're able to look at the casualty, you've seen blood is oozing, you can see glasses, that is already assessment.
Okay.
But now, there are different levels of assessment that I would really recommend. Instead, okay, casualties are part and parcel in the incident scene. Besides the casualties, we also have other dangers in the scene. So before you quickly rush to the casualty, first be safe. Then the next thing, are those people around you also safe? Because there is no intention, there is no need of you rushing to go help, at the end of the day, end up being a casualty. So I'll insist still, the first step is assess. Assess, when you're assessing, you are assessing all the aspects. That is the bystanders, the crowd, you're assessing the oncoming vehicles, you're assessing the power lines, you're looking at every aspect, including the casualties. How many are they? What could be the kind of injury they have assessed, they could have sustained. And thereafter, you are able now, the next step is now make your area safe.
Okay.
Ensure now your safety.
So at this point, because nimefika and probably I'll call her Grace.
Yes.
So Grace ako hapo, amelala and everything. First of all, what is Grace thinking at this time? Ako pale, there's a piece of glass that has stabbed her. There's probably blood. What is she thinking?
A lot could be going on, depending with how she has sustained her injury. It could be she's unconscious. If she's unconscious, her mind is blank.
Okay.
If she's conscious, she could be feeling pain. She could be, sometimes, the feeling of death could be looming, Imagine, being involved in a traffic accident and you don't know how bad you've been injured. And the first thing that comes into your mind is, I could be dying, all right? And there's pain and there is blood coming out. Some of them are just feeling giddy and nauseatic and, they can't even, others are even disoriented with the environment. So it depends with how they have sustained the injury. The injury will determine how they're feeling. Others will just be blank because of unconsciousness, others giddy, nauseatic, others will be disoriented, not even aware of where they are or what has happened to them. Others will be in pain and others will be just, afraid or in shock.
Is there a standard operating procedure on, I've come to this accident, nimempata hapa, in every single kind of accident, and it's a road accident, whichever, either minor or major, is there always, now after assessing, is there a standard operating procedure?
Yes, there is. And I will simply denote it as AMEGA. AMEGA is A-M-E-G-A. So the first step, as I said, is assess the situation.
Okay.
The next step is now ensure scene safety. In scene safety, it depends. If you have responded to a scene and you are a motorist, you're driving, one of the first things you will park at a safe distance, then put your hazard lights on. Then cautiously approach the scene. If there are bystanders there, use them to help you ensure scene safety. In scene safety, where we have vehicles collided, for instance, the batteries are still running, the engine is still running. If it is safe to do so, try to turn them down, to turn them off or switch them off. This is to prevent ignition or fire starting up. There are others that could have been rolling and they just stopped. But in the process of rolling, it may not have gained stability. So ensuring vehicle stability, like choking tires for those ones that are still standing, while those ones that are rolling or probably on the back, it's important to also ensure the stability of the vehicle. Smokers on the scene should be kept off completely. I'll make sure that nobody who is smoking should be around an accident area where there's a collision of vehicles.
So you do all this before now we get to Grace?
Before we get to the casualty. Scene safety is important. Because you see, you rush to the casualty and you might end up putting yourself in danger. And that is one of the greatest mistakes people do. I have seen situations where we have had a road traffic accident involving a matatu and a boda, people rushing in, and then it is a busy traffic road. And then in the process of rushing in, another boda or another matatu comes and ramages into them, you see. So this makes the situation even worse. So scene safety is important. Another way is within those people, you can take two within a distance of 50 meters from each side of the incident. Let them be controlling the traffic. This is to ensure safety. If we have other motorists who are willing to help, they can use their own vehicles. One parks 50 meters from the scene, redirecting the traffic somewhere else. And this ensures safety. So this is the second step, basically speaking, of ensuring safety. Once the scene is safe, the third step is now go to the casualty and now give emergency aid. That is now the E of our mega. Now, when you go to the casualty to give emergency aid, there is a lot of factors that you need to consider, especially an incident where you have several casualties. Now, the priority in where we have incidents where we have several casualties, look at those injuries that are life-threatening. Those are the first people you're going to attend to. So do not prioritize just because somebody is crying or walking. No, look at injuries that are life-threatening. Example of injuries that are life-threatening are things like amputation. You know, somebody's arm has been cut off, or the leg, or they're having massive or severe bleeding, that kind of a bleeding where the blood is shooting. You know, that is arterial bleeding, it's dangerous. Where we have too much blood flow, where we have fractures, severe burns, those are injuries that are immediately threatening to life.
So now we're in the third one, the emergency.
Yes.
And we've said so to make clear the set, so a set is clear,
yes.
Make sure 50-50, you know, everything. So nilikuwa nimetoka from my very nice Mercedes Benz, nikatoka nikapata Grace amepata ajali, let's amegongwa na pikipiki hapo. And probably pale there's a whole chaos. But now I want to give her first aid. I don't have anything. As I am. How do I give her first aid? She's probably there's blood oozing from, you know, her ears, maybe there are a few, you know, pieces of glass, maybe ama let's say unaona mguu kidogo inakaa hivi, let's say
imevunjika.
Tuseme for example inakaa hivyo twisted kidogo. Yes. So what now happens?
Now when
bila any first aid.
Yes. The first thing that you need to do every time you find a casualty in a road traffic accident, number one, I'll tell you, do not be misled by what you see. Fractures, bleeding, yes, they're immediately threatening to life, but there's something more. There's something called the ABCs of life: airway, breathing, and circulation. There is no need of you rushing to a broken leg when this person is not breathing. It is useless. By the time you finish, she'll be long dead. See, your brain cannot survive without oxygen for more than 4 minutes. 4 to 6 minutes, your brain starts, without oxygen, starts to damage. So basically speaking, the first thing and your first priority is basically her airway is open, she's breathing and having a circulation.
So that's the first place.
That is the first place you go.
So
thereafter, if the airway is okay, breathing is okay, and circulation is okay, then now we can go to the fracture. Now we can go to the bleeding.
So that's now you can
check
show us
for the airway.
Yes, for the airway.
Always as important, as you said, it's always important to put on your gloves whenever you're handling any casualty, no matter the situation, no matter the circumstance.
So if you don't have this.
Now, if you don't have gloves, you can always improvise. If you have polythene bag or a plastic bag with you, you can use it. If it is not there, well, I will tell you, do not refuse to give aid in fear of getting infectious diseases. They're still there. But what I'll advise you, as soon as you finish giving a first aid, wash your hands with water and soap or a sanitizer. And within 72 hours, make sure you visited a public hospital facility so that you can get examined and provided any infection control medication for your safety. Yes.
So you can proceed and demonstrate for us.
So I'm here, a road accident has happened, I've assessed the situation, I've ensured that the scene is clear and is safe for me and for all that are others. Then I approach the casualty. Now I'm going to give emergency aid. The first thing is I'm going to check if Grace is responsive. If she's responsive, it's going to even make the medication even more simpler, because I'm going to ask her where she's feeling the pain and etc. So how do I check for response? Hey Grace, can you hear me? If you can hear me, please open your eyes. Grace, if you can feel me, please open your eyes. She's not responding, therefore she's unconscious. So I have to find most of the information myself. The next thing when I'm going to now check is to ensure that she's having an open airway and she's breathing and she has a circulation. So naturally, when a casualty is unconscious, what we call this, something called a muscle tone. Your muscle relaxes. And one of the muscles that relaxes is the tongue. The tongue goes back and it blocks the airway, making it difficult for the casualty to breathe. So basically speaking, that is where airway, breathing, and circulation comes in handy. There are high chances that she's not breathing properly. So how do you open the airway? You put the palm on the forehead, 2 fingers under the chin, and tilt the head like that, and lift the chin. So basically speaking, this is how you open the airway. The next thing I'm going to check if Grace is breathing for 10 seconds. So I'm going to place my hands over the nose to feel the breathing, as well as look at the stomach, if it's rising and falling for 10 seconds. Well, I can confirm that she's breathing. The next thing I'm going to check if she's having a circulation. So I'm going to use her carotid pulse right here to find if she's breathing. So I'm looking for the palpitations. If I can feel them for 10 seconds, then it means her circulation is okay.
So Leila, how, in your assessment, how long has Grace been lying here?
Well, it depends. If I was on scene when the accident was happening, then it was immediately. And sometimes it's a hit and run situation. You have heard about them. So that one depends. It could be 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 15 minutes, you know.
Okay, I think my question, to rephrase it, would be, if you found Grace unconscious, your assessment, then you arrived there.
Yes.
How long will she have been lying there so that akafika point that she's actually unconscious?
Well, let me approach this question this way. Unconsciousness also differs with the nature of injury.
Okay.
Like, for example, a blow to the head. If they got a direct impact on the head, there's likelihood of them being unconscious immediately. While we have people like, say, asthmatic casualties, or others that have just bled. So probably if they have bled for a longer duration of time without receiving any help, they will slowly become unconscious. It will take a while for them to become unconscious. I don't know if that answers your question.
It definitely does. And even speaking of questions, before we proceed, because we've taken a look at how she'd probably breathe and all that, we can have now the numbers there. Back at home, wherever you're watching us from, if you're watching us mobile on our YouTube page, 0795-045-864 is the number to call in live. Send in all those questions, or if you probably have any feedback to ask Laila, she'll be answering them for you. So we've established that she's unconscious.
Yes.
So now, will your next focus be probably the thighs, or what will happen?
Very good. Now, since the ABCs are okay, then I can relax. Now come where? To where the fracture is.
So if she's if she's still unconscious, do you still focus on that, or because you can see on her leg there is a fracture, there's blood oozing, do you focus on her unconsciousness, or?
Now, once you have established that your casualty is breathing, airway and circulation are okay, whether they are unconscious or not, you're good to go. Now we can focus on the injury.
All right.
Yes, now this is another life-threatening situation. So the ABCs are okay, now let's focus on another life-threatening condition again.
So if she's not, if the airway is not okay?
Open. If the airway is not open, we open it. We check if she's breathing. If she's not breathing, we go to something else. We have to do a cardiopulmonary resuscitation, CPR. So I won't focus on the leg for now. We need to restart the heart. Now that's why you start compressing the chest until she comes back, and then we continue. If there is somebody on scene, you could be doing there while somebody else is handling the fracture.
Right.
Yes, but if you're alone, prioritize
all right.
the heart.
So let's cross over now to the fracture before I now bring in a whole other hypothetical.
It's okay. Now, when you come to the fracture of the leg, number one, it's important also, again, you carry a specific assessment on this leg. See, when there's a fracture here, there could be also a dislocation at the pelvic area. So the first thing is I will quickly examine this leg, just to be sure that there are not any other injuries sustained somewhere. Because as I concentrate here, I can cause further damage where we have another injury. So here we do what we call a systematic secondary survey, a quick assessment to check if the casualty might have been injured somewhere else. So as I'm checking, you can notice I'm checking my hands. Why? She's putting on cloth. There could be bleeding inside that I'll be able to see. All right. Another thing, I'll apply some slight pressure. This is just to feel if there is any breakages inside, if I can feel some form of distension or something like the sort. I'm also checking her face as I do that. Probably I can slightly apply pressure here, and I can see her face changing. That means she's reacting to pain. Then there is an injury again. So that is how you check. Gently, gently, checking. I'm also going to feel her toes. Something called a cup refill. I'm going to press the toe and see how fast does it refill. If it takes longer, it means blood is not moving properly to this side. Then also, I will check a pulse. There's a pulse somewhere here. It's called dorsalis pedis. I use it to check the condition of the pulse.
All right.
Now, once that is okay, the next thing is this fracture open or closed? We have two types of fractures. Open fractures and closed fractures.
All right.
Open fractures, the bone is protruding outside the skin. You can see it. Closed fracture, the bone is inside. It's not outside the skin. Now, most of the fractures, whether closed or open, you handle the same way. But I'll start with the open one. So the open one, you make a simple thing called a donut ring.
So and before now we get into all that, the nice looking apparatus that you have.
Yes.
I came on this road, but then now before I get that, I'm being told that we twende Kawangware. Mio, habari asubuhi?
Mzuri sana.
Watu wa Kawangware mnaendeleaje?
Menyesha sana.
Pole sana. Na sasa unaona venye kunanyesha, sijui kama kuna maswali au maoni.
Swali moja tu. Kama mimi I was knocked with the motorbike nikienda kasi.
Lini hiyo?
Na niligongwa na motorbike nikienda kasi.
Ilikuwa lini?
Na 2020.
Okay.
So immediately vile nilianguka hivi, kumbe nilikuwa nimefunjika right hand completely. So wale walinisaidia, walinitoka tu kwa immediately na kunichukua na kuanza kukimbia na mimi mguu. Yaani hiyo mguu haikuwekwa hata kwa nilikuwa nakimbia na mguu inaning'inia hivi. Inaweza kuwa tena iliniongeza madhara mengine kulingana na mwalimu vifutia hapo. Sababu walinichukua tu pasipo hata hiyo mguu vile wanaweza kurealize wakafunge isiwe inaning'inia. Inaweza kuwa iliongeza another fracture, yani fracture kubwa. Yeah, that's my question.
Asante sana. Mio salimia watu wa Kawangware wameendelea kututazama. Hiyo swali itakuwa najibiwa sahi tuna Leila.
Okay.
A very nice question.
A very good question. A very good question. Yes. Kunaweza kuwa na high possibilities wakati alikuwa anasongezwa hivyo vingi amesema further injuries could have been sustained. And that is why we are here. Because most of the situations or most of the times wakati tunakimbia kwenda kuwa rescue, in the process ya kuwasaidia we cause further injuries. Number one, any casualty or anybody that is involved in a traffic accident always assume they have a spinal injury. Ukimbeba tu ovyo, you might cause further damage. Number two, wakati unabeba mgonjwa yote ambaye ameumia kwa ajali, always try to move the whole body as a unit. Tunaelewana? Ukisongeza mgonjwa, unatakana ubebe mwili yote mzima pamoja as a unit. Kitu kama fracture.
Naambia na director Kevo tuone for example ya hiyo scenario ya kubeba mtu. So I think now I'll have to be your co-assistant. Do I need gloves for this?
It depends. Now, number one, carrying, you just don't carry a casualty anyhow. There are a lot of factors that you need to consider. If our casualty has a spinal injury, we need to look for a flat, firm surface, a spine board, a backboard. That is the only thing that can help us carry this casualty.
So, I mean, things have happened. We were on Thika Road, mahali pale Kasarani, akagonga na pikipiki. You don't have anything like that there.
Yeah. We can improvise. Mbao, unaweza pata mbao kubwa mzuri flat. Tubebe nayo. Mlango, unaweza fanya hiyo kazi mzuri. Something that is, as long as it's flat
and it's
firm.
Okay.
It is important that you do that. Alafu namba 2, kumbuka, moving should only be done if it is necessary to do so. If it is not necessary, do not move the casualty. Actually, movement may cause further injuries. You'd rather leave the casualty as they are, call for help, let the ambulance come and handle. Only move your casualty if it is necessary to do so.
So you mean even the fact that akona blanketi hapo, hata kubeba na blanketi ni makosa?
Tutabeba na hiyo blanketi if we really need to have to carry her with that blanket. But hata hii blanketi vinge tutabeba, kuna vinge inafaa kubeba. Kama blanket carry itatutaji at least watu 4. Ndio tubebe na blanketi. Tumeelewana. So the nature of the injury will determine how you carry the casualty. And the need also will determine the necessity of the moving of the casualty. So unapata kuna injuries hatuwezi beba na blanketi. But kuna injuries unapata kama mgonjwa akiwa unconscious, ukiwa peke yake pia weight is a matter that you need to consider. Tumeelewana. Yes. That is a fact.
Jutukua wawili, wacha nitafute watu wengine wawili hapa Thika Road yetu.
Tutapata mtu.
Tupate watu wawili watusaidie kukimbiza hospitali.
Ni sawa.
So now, because you told us, and we're in the process of telling us and assessing these whole fractures, and you're telling us the different types of fractures where the bone has protruded, na ile ingine like bado tuiko ndani. So now I want to bring in a whole hypothetical of, let's say it's a bus, and for example, a huge material has fallen on top of her leg. You know, what happens? But then hold on that. Francis Kasarani, habari asubuhi. Francis kutoka Kasarani, habari asubuhi.
Mzuri sana.
Wewe ni wale mnatumia Thika Road kabisa, si ndio?
Hapana, mimi niko upande wa Kangundo Road, sio Thika Road.
Kangundo Road. Huko pia ajali zinatokea. Sijui uko na swali, ume witness accident na ukakuwa tuna kaswali ungependa kutuuliza leo?
Swali yenye mimi nilikuwa napenda kuuliza. Ni unaweza pata labda mtu amegongwa na hiyo gari imekimbia hivyo hit and run. Sasa ukipata mtu kama huyo ukijaribu kumsaidia, unajua ukipatikana hapo na yeye itachukuliwa ni kama wewe ndio umemgonga. Sasa incident kama hiyo inafaa kufanya aje tukiwa barabarani? Ukipata mtu amegongwa na gari yenye imemgonga haiko hapo, inafaa kusaidia aje mtu kama huyo?
Sawa. Asante sana Francis, salimia watu wa Kangundo Road huko.
Sawa, asante.
Haya. Umwache hapo ama umsaidie?
Hapana. Tafadhali, naelewa situation ambayo Francis anasema. Number 1, itaku encourage hivi. Wakati wote unapopata mtu ambaye ameumia kwa barabara, ni vizuri uitishe usaidizi. Nitaku discourage usizoe kupeana usaidizi wa kwanza ukiwa peke yako. Number 1 ni kama cases kama hizo. Number 2, mgonjwa inaweza fika hali fulani yenye hauwezi mshughulikia peke yako, inabidi upate usaidizi. So jaribu iwezekanavyo popote pale unapojipata na mgonjwa, piga nduru, ita kama unaweza piga simu, unaweza piga nduru, help, somebody help me, I need help here. Watu watajitokezea kuja kusaidia. And with people coming in, hiyo ni an area that a good ground inaweza kusaidia kwa situations kama hizo. Number 2, ni vizuri kama first aider, every time unapeana huduma ya kwanza, take record of everything that happened. Kama inawezekana ukiwa na kitabu na kalamu pahali unaweza andika everything venye ulikuja ukapata situation kenye ulifanya. Na ni vizuri pia situation kama hiyo lazima before ushike chochote lazima upige wapi? Polisi simu. Ama unaweza piga ambulance, waambie nimefika place fulani na nimepata kuna mgonjwa anakaa hivi na ako peke yake na ni kama amegongwa. Na mimi ni msaidizi wa kwanza nataka kumsaidia.
You're advising us kifika if you're alone, write down. So but then essentially tunanga mtu anakuja na anatoa simu, anarekodi yote, anatumia vloggers ndio pia party numbers. Will that be how important is that? Mimi nikikuja ni record.
It is very unethical from my point of view. It is not good to do so. This person's life is at danger and you're taking advantage of their situation for your own good. It's not fair at all, even in a human and a moral perspective.
Okay.
So basically speaking, the only thing you can do with your phone is when you're getting emergency help. Call the police, call the ambulance, they will be there.
All right.
That is a good backup for you.
All right. So now before Franco kutoka Kangundo arudi atupigie simu, so you were explaining to us the whole bit of the fractures and had brought in the whole hypothetical of, so what about if something had had crushed on top of her leg?
No, very good. An important point to remember, as we began earlier, we say the first step is assess. The second step is make the area safe. Now, the third step is giving emergency aid. Okay. And I mentioned there are factors that you need to mention to focus on. Number 1, I said you can get an MCI, mass casualty incident, where you have several casualties. And there I said prioritize the need based on how dangerous is the injury to their heart, to their health, to their life. Okay. Then number 2, it's important to keep in mind, you may find in an accident, you will find trapped victims.
Okay.
Now, in a crash incident, now that's like a crash, where something heavy is on the casualty. I'll advise, if you reach to the casualty within the 15 minutes since the crash happened, then you are able to do what? To lift. But if you arrive at the scene and the crash has happened past 15 minutes, do not attempt to remove that object.
But how will
on
you
the
know?
Casualty.
How will you know 15 minutes has elapsed?
Scene assessment. People that are there, you will ask them what happened, when did it happen, you get such information. If the casualty is responsive, you can ask such information. You can look at the environment and try to relate. When could this have happened? So if it's beyond 15 minutes, do not remove. Another important thing I'd like to advise is also this. Most crash situations, it's best if we allow the firefighters to come in and deal with it best, rather than ourselves dealing with lifting such objects. So if it's something heavy, it's a casualty stuck in a wreck, we may require the firemen to come in to help in such a situation. Right. And that is why it's also important. Every time you arrive at the scene, a road traffic accident, you have assessed, call for help, let the emergency teams be coming as you make the area safe and as you attend to the casualty, so that they can sort out such situations.
Now speaking of attending to the casualty, so we she probably has a fracture on the right leg. So show us practically how, without any first aid kits around you.
Yes.
How better you can solve that?
Now, number one is find a piece of clean cloth. So in this case, I want you to assume that this is my piece of clean cloth. It's just a piece of clean cloth. It's not part of my first aid kit.
Okay.
Now,
so kwa gari nilikuwa let's say na scarf.
Ulikuwa na scarf. Yes, ulikuwa na handkerchief. Bora iko safi. The next thing, make a donut ring out of that piece of cloth.
Okay.
I don't know if you remember how to make it. We did it last time. So you make a donut ring. So it's something that you can easily weave. A donut ring is not something new for most Kenyans. In the community where I come from, we make this to carry water on pots of water on our heads. So you just make something like that.
Oh, ni kama hiyo.
Yes. But now a smaller one. Don't make a bigger one. All right. So you make a good donut ring. Once the donut ring is ready, so this is my donut ring, right? Now, this is where the fracture has happened. I'm going to put this donut ring right over the fracture, like that. The next thing, find another piece of clean cloth again. Another piece of clean cloth. Assume this is another piece of clean cloth.
Okay.
And then make a very simple strip out of that clean cloth, like a bandage.
So now, even as you continue, because this is a hypothetical of, umepata hii ajali hapo.
Yes.
And it's in an accident, in a road accident.
Yes.
You don't really have an access of something clean.
Yes.
You actually won't know if it's clean.
Yes.
Ndio atakupatia shika hii scarf yangu, ni safi, niliosha asubuhi. But you're not really sure if it's clean.
All right.
How can you maybe use something to sanitize it probably?
All right, that's a good question. Now, obvious signs of something that is clean. If you're given a piece of cloth and it has mud on it, it's not clean. If it has stains on it, it's not clean. But if I can take your shirt, definitely it's clean. I can use it. I don't know if I'm making the sense.
Okay.
Yes, so that is the basic thing. Yeah. So I understand out in the road you may not be able to find something perfectly clean, but try to find something that, doesn't have...
But then essentially, I'd assume that this, let's say the shirt or maybe even my tie is clean. But then when it comes to germs and everything, it might not be 100% clean. So is there something that you can use to maybe purify it, for example?
All right. Now, the reason as why I'm withholding the aspect of purification is this. Probably, I don't know if it's in your mind that you're ringing about aspects to do with methylated spirits and so on.
Yeah, maybe,
no. Now listen.
It's one thing, because it's one thing that a lot of Kenyans would probably do. Ataona ni ajali imefanyika. Let spirit umwagele kwa nguo, ikuwe safi and all that.
Apana. Now, if spirits are discouraged completely to use them on wounds. Actually, at St. John Ambulance, we are actually adhering to one of the most latest international standards. We no longer use spirits, methylated spirit for first aid. Iodine solution, hydrogen peroxide, do not use them on wounds. Even applying them on this and then, no, it is not safer. Now, the idea you're trying to come up with is also what we call sterilized. Honestly speaking, we cannot sterilize in such situations like that. And that's why I'm saying just go with anything that is clean. You don't have to sterilize them. That is the thing.
So you may continue.
All right. Now, the next thing, I'm going to secure my donut ring on the wound. Be careful. If the bone is a bit taller, don't cover over the top of the bone. The next thing, when you are going to cover this, make sure you use the natural hollows of the body. Like at the knee, there is a specific hole. And then at the ankle, there is also. So this avoids, we said we do not move the casualty at any point. So I'm going to maximize with the natural hollows of the body. Mark you, this cloth should not be there. It should have been removed. When we are doing the assessment, we should expose.
Yes, because that was my next question.
Yes, we cannot, you do not handle the fracture with cloth on. So one of the first things is after the ABCs, the next thing, expose the wound, remove the cloth, then quickly assess to see if there is any other injury, then make a donut ring, and we are going to secure our donut ring on our casualty. So I'm going to use the natural hollows to secure this. Be careful not to cause further injury or even move the leg further.
How tight should it be?
Not too tight. It should be firm, but not tight. So basically speaking, firmness enough to apply pressure on the sides of the bone to reduce on the bleeding. But if it's tight, it will impair blood flow. and this may lead to amputation. So it shouldn't be tight, it should be firm. Firm enough to apply pressure on the sides of the bone, not on top of the bone. On the sides of the bone to control bleeding.
Right.
Once you have done the donut ring, the next step is we are going to immobilize this leg. We are going to try as much as possible to limit movement. Now this is an improvised, these are pieces of papers.
Okay.
I put together to create something strong. Thereafter, I need to make it softer for the casualty's body when I place it so that it doesn't rub on the bodies of the casualty.
So
you can use...
okay, yeah. So what can you really use in a span of less than 5 minutes to try and improvise?
You can use wood, sticks, whichever that you can get.
Okay.
These are some of the things that you can be able... You can't fail to get a stick by the roadside. You can't fail to get, this is mbao.
Yeah. Do you have to wrap it like
yes,
you've done?
It's important to wrap it because most of these sticks are rough on the surface.
Okay, yeah.
So if you put it on the skin of the casualty, they might end up abrasing the casualty. This will cause discomfort, more pain, and you're not helping the situation.
Right.
So basically speaking, you have to wrap it to be softer for the casualty. Besides this, if these are not available, don't we have cots? Don't we have Masai shukas?
Okay.
Simple things like that, like this can act like a Masai shuka, and you can fold it properly and use it in such a situation. So how do you use it? Things that are easily available in these coats, Masai shukas, lassos, you can get them on the roadside. So what you just do is properly fold them. Something like that. It's good to go.
Okay.
You use it.
Right.
Or you make these are pieces of paper, or you use
wood.
Bow, yes. Right. If it's this one, you place both like this.
Oh, it has to be on both
sides.
Okay.
If it's lasso or Masai shuka, you just use one at the center.
All right.
All right? So I'm going to use the lasso one or the shuka one.
So what's the purpose of all this?
All this. The essence is to keep this leg aligned and to keep it immobilized. It can't move. Remember the way the other person was saying aligongwa na pikipiki, then really, that is very dangerous. So the leg is not supposed to. The leg is supposed to remain, if this is the hand, it's supposed to remain straight like that, aligned like that. So that is the essence of these splints. They are called splints. Sawa sawa.
Right.
Yes. Now, for me to put these splints, I will also require other extra pieces of cloth. Pieces of cloth are very necessary when it comes to first aid, actually. So I'm going to use some more pieces of cloth to do this work. So here, I'm going to tie specific areas of the body. And this is very important. Also, you get a grasp of these areas. So, number one, these pieces of cloth should be broad enough like this.
Okay.
If you take a slim piece of cloth, when you tie the casualty, you see, when something that is slim ends up having a what? It applies some negative pressure, and there's a feeling of you being, abreast or friction or something like the sort. Yeah. Yes. So make a broad like this one. Now, gently, this is a good leg, so it's not a big deal if you move it. But this one that is injured, be gentle with it. Use the natural hollows.
Okay.
The first place you're going to position this is under the wound, under the fracture. It's important. The second place you're going to position.
So for this we're using the wood.
Yes.
Right. So can I help you?
Sure, please go ahead. I need help.
Unaweza nisaidia na moja hapo.
So we first make this.
Oh, okay.
So make another broad fold.
Okay. Unasema broad.
Yes, a broad one.
So iko sawa sawa?
Yes. Make another broad one. So we're going to use the natural hollows. Now it's you to insert the next one.
Kusukuma box na huko nyuma kidogo.
All right.
Perfect. So basically for this
it's the same.
Speed, how should someone's speed be?
You need to be fast enough, if possible. I want you to insert it through the natural hollow. Very good. Comes this way. Now, these are the 3 specific areas that are mandatory for you to able to secure a good. So, at the ankle is a must, at the knees is a must. Then you can have one right below the fracture. The next thing is now we can do the splint, this one, or we can do the blanket.
Okay.
So this one you must have 2 of them. That's why I'm just using the blanket, right? So the blanket, you will place it at the center like that towards the leg that is injured. Then realize with her leg, there's some space here. So I need this leg to be as straight as possible. So I'm going to find something else like a padding and place here to ensure that the leg remains straight.
Okay.
Then this good leg, I can easily move like that. The next thing I'm going to secure. So when you secure, the first place to start with securing is at the ankle of the injured leg, here. And then gently pull the good leg towards the bad leg, make a figure of 8, like that. And then you secure here. So that is the first place.
Okay.
In the meantime, now you can secure. The next place to secure is the knees. Now when you secure the knee, you tie the knot.
So for this one?
No, this one is the last one.
Okay.
This is the second part.
So this is the second one.
When you secure it, you secure towards the uninjured leg.
To this side.
The knot comes to this side.
So this one, tuone kama nita kneel down. The one.
All right. To this side. So you can gently pull it.
Oh, right. Yes. So gently pull that.
And secure it. Perfect. Yes, you make a reef knot. A reef knot is the best. That is a reef knot.
Okay.
Good. Nice. Oh, this is a butterfly. That's okay. Sometimes, because of the pressure that the knot can place on the skin of the casualty, you may use something else again to pad so that the pressure doesn't. Yes, if you have enough resources.
Okay.
Then lastly, we tie this to this side. And that is how you manage a simple fracture on the rod. Now this is good. We can now wait for the ambulance to come. Or we can transport if need be. Sometimes you can be in the village where there's no possibility of an ambulance accessing us. Now we can be able to transport. Also remember, this casualty will go into shock. It's always important to cover them with a blanket.
Right.
Yes.
So when you started, you told us the omega.
Yes, omega.
So we've done the E.
The E, emergency aid.
So emergency aid.
There's one more thing I need to mention about emergency aid. In a road traffic accident, after handling the casualties that you can see, always search around. Some are thrown off, some come out of the accident disoriented, they may wander off. So those are some of the things that you need to keep in mind.
Right.
Yes.
So that's the E.
Yes.
So a meg, so
G.
G.
Is to get help.
Oh, get help.
Now in getting help, I'll tell you this. Depending on your scene assessment, you will determine whether G comes as the fourth or becomes as a first. But with traffic accidents that advise us, let G become one of the first. When you're assessing in a road traffic accident, get help. Who are you getting help from? Number one, call the emergency services. People that you can never miss to call in a traffic accident: police, ambulance, fire brigade. So, those are the constant.
So for example, in our case, we started and then tulisha piga simu
wanakuja
kaambia St. John ambulance. Nikapata mtu anaitwa Matara kuja unisaidie.
Yes.
Na ndio naona wanaingia saa hii sasa. Matara akakuja na aid wake. Ndio kuja watusaidie sasa kubeba
mgonjwa.
Grace. So we've done G.
Yes.
So the last one before tuone venye tutasaidia kubeba Grace.
Now the last one is aftermath.
Aftermath.
The aftermath is dependent. Number one, if you are the person that was involved in the accident, you may have to contact your insurance.
Okay.
You know, if you used your first aid kit, supposing you had a first aid kit, you need to restock your first aid kit.
Right.
Some situations can be very traumatizing. It's important you go seek counseling. I don't know if I'm communicating. Those are situations.
Wacha tuende Bungoma ndio sasa tubebe mgonjwa Hassan, anaitwa Hassan. Hassan, habari ya Bungoma?
Nzuri sana.
Ramadhani inaendelea jama?
Ramadhani iko swafi.
Haya, tunashukuru pia sisi. Asante kwa kutupigia. Uko na swali ama maoni?
Na swali. Na maoni pia.
Yes. Yes, uliza tunakusikia.
Yes.
Endelea.
Ramadhani iko sawa, tunashukuru Mwenyezi Mungu.
Uko na swali?
Nilikuwa na swali na maoni, lakini wacha nitoe maoni yangu tu. Nafurahi sana mmeleta kipindi hiki kwa TV. Tunaelimika sana, manake hali kama hizi hutokea na watu wajui wafanye nini, waanzie wapi.
Kweli.
Na mmeleta mwanadada ambaye kidogo anaelewa haya masala vizuri. Na kila kitu. Unajua kuna time ya ajali huwa kuna mshtuko, watu wanapiga kelele, watu wanachanganyikiwa, mpaka wanaongeza labda mtu mwenye amepata ajali hata labda alikuwa yuko vibaya sana, anakuwa na mshtuko wa moyo. Lakini sasa unakuta mambo kama haya pia ya nini, kwa mfano mtu amepata fractures na nini, the way you handle hiyo situation, unaona tu mtu ako sawa. Na pia watu ukimbilia kumvuta, mara watu wamejaa hapo, wengine mtu atashika mguu, mtu atavuta wapi, utapata unaongeza majeruhi kama tu alivyosema. Lakini kwa sisi watu wa mitaani huku, sijui kama inawezekana mtu awe na vifaa hivyo kwa wakati ili aweze kuhudumia huyo mtu ambaye amepata ajali. Kwa sababu sisi huku kukimbia na motorbike, tumrusha kwa motorbike, tumpeleke hospitali. Alafu mambo yanakuwa mengine.
Sawa. Asante sana Hassan. Asante sana Hassan. Salimia sana watu wa Bungoma.
Nitawasalimia.
Yes, sawa. So sijui bwana director, sijui ni wrap it up, alafu tukimalizia sasa after nimefanya closing remarks tubebe mgonjwa hadi hospitali yetu hapa Cape Media Hospital hapa. So tufunge na let me do the closing remarks. Asanteni sana St. John Ambulance, asante sana Laila and Bwire and the team for the whole tips. Your last remarks.
Very well. This is a very crucial program, and I thank you for organizing it. It's important, Kenyans. Twendeni darasani tusome. First aid. It's a very critical skill. St. John Ambulance, we are available across the country. Please, wherever you are, reach out. I say our number?
Oh, yes, please.
Please, 0721-225-285. Reach out at that number anywhere you are. If you want first aid classes, you can be able to do what? To get us through that number.
Okay.
If you want an ambulance, you can get us. We are also present in major highways. We have community first aid posts in all major roads in the country. So in case of any accidents, we can reach out to you. We also have a trauma clinic, 2 major trauma clinics in one of the the 2 major highways in the country. Please, if you have any accidents, you can take your casualty there.
Asante sana.
Yes.
Asante sana also to you back at home for being with us all the way from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. We do this every single Monday to Friday. This is Morning Cafe. I'm yours truly, Stanley Nyaringiti, on behalf of the entire team. Hapa hivi akina Jones, Jimu, Mary, Joy, na Ian hapa hivi pale hivi kwa gallery, directors Kevo, super producer Mary, kwa graphics Naomi. Asanteni sana kwa sound Kevo. Nimeshukuru sana. Tubebe mgonjwa hadi Cape Media Hospital. Yani unaweza simama hiyo side. So tunabeba na okay, so unaweza kuna tuambia how you're doing it.
Tutapiga magoti.
Okay.
Tutafold blanketi kabisa. Haya, wa kwanza mkono hapo, mwingine ikuje hapa, hiyo ikuje hapa. Alafu ikuje kwa kichwa hapo, isaidie kushikilia kichwa, isupport kichwa, unaweza fold karibu kwa kichwa kabisa. Vizuri. Now tutakuwa on our mark, tutaweka our back straight in 2, 3, 1 up. Yes. Tukipeleka mgonjwa, mguu unatangulia.
Okay.
Kwanza, mguu utakanda juu.
All right.
Unatangulia. Kichwa inakuwa nyuma.
Okay.
Alafu polepole tukienda, polepole. Like that. Keep the body straight. Put the casualty's body closer to your body. Yes, like that.
Hadi Cape Media Hospital.
Yeah, tumefika hospital.
Well, here guys.